Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of
Hey
the
guys.
BFG podcast. Today we are going to be talking about some of our least favorite movies. So far we've been either reviewing new movies or talking about some of our favorite movies. This week we set out to torture each other as much as we could.
Torture we did.
Yeah, with some of our least favorite movie watching experiences. But before we go that, last week we talked about our favorite musicals, and I challenged you to come up with a list of your top 10 favorite directors. So before we get into...
You suck for that. That was hard.
It was really hard. Like even I'm not as big into like picking directors and their filmographies as much, but I tortured myself over this. I was like poring over like different filmographies and different directors, and then I'd think of one and be like, oh, I gotta add them to the list, and then I'd try to like narrow it down again, and it was just like yesterday afternoon that I finally was like, okay, I gotta go with my gut and get rid of like these last couple that I can't decide between. And so without further ado, do you want to start with your number 10?
I would love to. So my number 10 is Matt Johnson.
Okay.
Oh my god, did you hear my voice crack during that?
That's okay.
Fuck.
We're not here to be professional. We're here to have fun.
My number 10 is Matt Johnson. Also, if you're watching, I have a mustache. I forgot to shave it. I like to grow my mustache out to mess with my friends and girlfriend. And I forget a lot of the times that I just have it. So
I just don't like taking the time. I run on like kind of efficiency and like a schedule, and so when the time comes, I'm like, I don't want to shave. That's like an extra 20 minutes of my day that I could be spending other ways.
Yeah, man, it shows too.
Yeah.
It shows that you don't care.
I know. Because I don't.
I'm just kidding. You're a handsome boy.
Thanks.
Come here often. Call me later.
Every week.
My number 10 is
day.
Matt Johnson. He's director of The Dirties and Operation Avalanche.
Which we had talked about. You had mentioned him, or you've mentioned him to me a few times, but you'd even mentioned him last week when we were talking about, or like through the week, when we were kind of discussing directors and talking about narrowing it down. You had mentioned how you weren't sure if Matt Johnson was going to make the cut or not, just because he had so few movies to represent himself with.
Yeah, the thing is, he's got those few movies, but he also has like a TV show and a few other things to his name.
Yeah.
And I think that his style is so distinct, even though he's only done a few things, that I can feel confident enough to like at least put him on the list.
Yeah.
Because of just like how much I love that style. Like he exudes it, and it's so fun.
Yeah.
I love it. So what's your number 10?
My number 10 is a far more prolific director. I started off my list with Alfred Hitchcock at number 10.
Lame.
Yeah, I know how you feel about Hitchcock, but I think I really like what he did, and I think for its time it was very it kind of changed the game a little bit in his era. Even if it's not as relevant today, I think that he made a lot of influential things. You know, I feel like the way we view thrillers and even horror would not be the same without his footprint with like Psycho, The Man Who Knew Too Much, even some of his more classics like Dial M for Murder and Strangers on a Train. Movies like that kind of set the stage for movies to come for a long time. And I think I really enjoy those now, but I think growing up on those really influenced my taste in movies. And so I have a lot of appreciation for what he did, even if they don't quite hold up as well as they used to.
That's understandable. I think he kind of sucks, but no, I'm just kidding. I don't think he sucks. I think he's definitely like a very talented filmmaker. Sorry, was. And I think that he's made a ton of really influential things. It's not for me.
Yeah.
You know, I like Rear Window. Rear Window's cool.
Yeah. Well,
let's see Vertigo. Not that big of a fan.
I know we've talked about some of his bigger movies, and I've kind of recommended some of his lesser known ones.
Like Rope.
Yeah, Rope. I still think you should see Rope, just if nothing else, for just to see the way it was shot.
Yeah.
Just because I know you like kind of the cinematography and the directing styles and stuff. Yeah. I think that would be a good one for you to watch, if for nothing else than just as a film study.
That's
And then, I mean, there's other good ones that I could recommend, but that's kind of the big one that I think you would appreciate.
Yeah.
Shadow of a Doubt is interesting because it's more of like a comedy, like a black comedy, than a straight thriller, like a lot of his movies. So that one might be kind of interesting too.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I like when more serious directors, like kind of take hits at like dark comedies and stuff. That's fun. Like what's his name, Kubrick and Doctor Strangelove and all that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna move on to my number 9.
Yes.
Which is Derek Cianfrance or Cianfrance. I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce it. I know that in the Irish language it's like Cian, but I don't know if that's what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that he makes really touching, like emotional movies for the 3 that he's done, and he's done one miniseries that I have not seen yet, starring Mark Ruffalo, the Hulk Ruffalo.
Yeah.
And I think, this is like, it looks interesting. I'll probably watch it at some point. But like stuff like Blue Valentine and the first half of Place Beyond the Pines, I think are like amazing.
Yeah.
I think it was so great. Second half, Place Beyond the Pines, not so much. It's just okay. And Light Between Oceans, it's pretty good. But I think he's got like a really touching, emotional, raw, gritty style that he gets through with a lot of. He pulls a lot of like really heart-wrenching performances out of his characters.
Yeah.
Even with so few words, like in Place Beyond the Pines in the first half, there's not as much dialogue as you would assume. Yet, like he gets that across with his filmmaking style, cinematography, like the moody lighting and music and everything.
So just great sanity check for myself. That's the Ryan Gosling one, right?
Yeah, the Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
Bradley Cooper.
Yeah.
Ted Dane Han.
I just wanted to make sure. I was like, I think I'm remembering the right one.
Yeah.
But I'm not as familiar with his work.
Yeah.
My number 9 is Brad Bird. I think that, especially as far as not just his animated movies, he got his start with Iron Giant, and from there,
Iron Giant's great.
went on to make some of the big Pixar ones like The Incredibles, Ratatouille, stuff like that. But even his live action, he did one of the Mission Impossibles. I think he was Ghost Protocol. And then
that's the first one I saw.
Yeah.
I actually really like that one.
I think it was Ghost Protocol that he did, and also Tomorrowland. And I think he's just, the stuff he does is, first of all, just kind of motivational and inspirational without being as, I don't want to say kitschy, but like some of the other filmmakers, especially for Pixar, wear their heart on their sleeve a little bit more.
Yeah.
People like Pete Docter, where it's much more kind of direct and in your face. I feel like Brad Bird is a little bit more nuanced with his storytelling, but I think what he does is really excellent. So my number 9 is Brad Bird.
That's a great one. Like a lot of the Pixar directors are really underrated as storytellers.
Yeah.
Because people see it as like, oh, it's kiddie animation and all that.
Yeah.
No, they're like pieces, they're works of art. And like if you just take the time to like watch them and get into them.
Yeah.
It's,
Which is another one of those things that I was telling you like earlier this week. I was like, hey, I don't want to say too much, but I've got like 4 or 5 Pixar directors that I'm trying to like pull off of my list, because I don't want all of my list to just be Pixar directors.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, they're so talented.
Yeah.
They have a constant standard of like really high quality films. I don't blame you. That's like, they make amazing stuff. My number 8 is, I forgot how to count that. It's 9 a.m. My number 8 is Martin Scorsese.
Okay.
I feel like I had to put him on here somewhere. I haven't seen all of his movies. I've seen like a few. I've seen the big ones like Irishman, Silence, Wolf of Wall Street. Oh my God, Wolf of Wall Street's amazing.
Very well
Goodfellas,
done.
Raging Bull, Taxi Driver, all those. I've seen those and a few more.
A lot of iconic movies. And he has his few that kind of like slip under the radar a little bit. But yeah, he's got a lot of iconic films that it's just kind of expected that anybody that knows their stuff about movies has seen.
Yeah, he's so prolific that I find it hard to not put him on here somewhere.
Although, with that being said, I don't know your list yet, but I don't think Spielberg made either one of our lists. While we're talking about how, like, you know, he's such a prolific director, he had to make the cut, and it's like I don't think either one of us used Spielberg.
Different kind of prolific. I'd say you got BFG prolific,
yeah,
and Big Friendly Giant, not Big Friendly. You got
Yeah.
BFG prolific, and then you got Goodfellas prolific. All right, you got like pick and choose.
yeah.
Although Spielberg does have amazing films, but like, come on, let's be real. Let's be a real Spiel. You're not doing anything special. Well, you are, but you know what I mean. But yeah, he's iconic for a reason. He makes amazing films.
Yeah.
They're super energetic, super quick cut. Pacing is just flies by. Even in The Irishman, almost 4 hours. It just flew by for me. I didn't even notice. Yeah. And like, they're all so like heartfelt in a way that they're coming from him.
They're very personal movies.
Yeah, like all of his movies, you can tell are like coming from a different time in his life. Like Goodfellas when he was like maturing into more of a middle-aged dude. His more biopic. Period piece movies in the 2000s when he's clearly getting up there in age, and then finally Irishman talking about his mortality and all that. And, him and Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, Joe Pesci and all them. Harvey Keitel, can't forget the kite. Always coming in talking about how we're gonna die one day. It's kind of sad, but this is our love letter to that, letter to death, and it's beautiful.
My number 8 is Buster Keaton.
Ooh. Oh, shut up.
Okay. He's a silent film star who, after making a lot of successful like shorts and films with other directors, got into the game for himself, and he started starring in his own directed films with shorts like Haunted House, Paleface, The Blacksmith, Electric House, things like that. And then he also had films like Sherlock Jr., The Navigator, The General. And I mean, those were some of his golden years. Some of his best shorts were the ones he directed himself, but he never really quite reached the status of some of, the big silent film greats like Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
But what he did so well. And the visual gags and the framing of his movies, I feel like were just as skilled, if not even better, than some of the bigger silent stars of the time. But he never really got the appreciation for it. But I think as far as he deserved a spot on my list, just because that's another one that I kind of grew up with. Like me and my brothers we would watch a lot of like the old silent films growing up, and Buster Keaton was kind of like one of the steady ones in our house. And I kind of just grew up fascinated with that style of filmmaking, using like visual storytelling because of just the limitations of the time. And I think he's one of the best. He was one of the best at the game.
I find it hilarious that you basically grew up in like a 1930s household.
I did.
Yeah, that's it. But no, that's really endearing that you have that close place in your heart with all the. That's adorable. Cute, Tyler. Very cute. Now let's talk about real movies.
Okay.
Ones that didn't take 20 minutes to make, and it's about like this is a man dropping potato. I stole that from BuzzFeed Unsolved. I gotta be real, but still, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I'm sure that he was an alright guy. So my number 7 is Greta Gerwig.
Okay.
This is kind of like partially her as a writer and a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Because, she's gonna have like, movies that like, she's gonna have like the period pieces like Little Women, which. Her directing that is off the charts.
Yeah,
she's amazing directing that, and then but before that she had like a more toned down, smaller movie like Lady Bird.
Yeah,
and whatever she's working on now, I'm super excited for. But she hits all these different like avenues for filmmaking, but all the writing remains so consistent and so like quick and witty, but natural feeling. It's like her and her husband Noah Baumbach are so similar in so many ways. And I wanted to put Noah Baumbach on here, but I feel like I hadn't seen enough of his movies to like actually put him up.
Yeah.
Although the ones I have seen, I love. And they both have like this like naturalistic, but like really quick, witty dialogue. But I feel like it kind of lends to Greta's style a little bit better. As you know, the characters she builds up are like a little bit more, well, depending on the movie, a little bit more exaggerated. Where like in Lady Bird, I feel like they're more exaggerated than they are in Marriage Story.
Yeah.
But then like you have like the Meyowitz's stories, and everyone's super exaggerated in that. But you know, like she has this like fun, eccentric style that like is engaging and super, like, you know, super fast and enthralling. Even in like a longer, what would normally be slower movie like Little Women, you know, it's snappy, goes by so quick, and it's fun. It's really entertaining, and I love it. She does an amazing job.
Definitely. My number 7 is Ridley Scott.
Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah. He has, and I mean, part of it is you kind of have to take the good with the bad with him. Because, you know, he's got like his
1492 conquests.
Yeah. And the big one for me, the big clunker that I always come back to is Legend. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
Is that the fantasy one from the 80s? With
Tim Curry plays like either the devil or a devil. Like he's done up in like these massive prosthetic horns and all this, like unrecognizable.
Cruise?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Tom Cruise plays like this little like manic pixie kid. He's dressed like Peter Pan and kind of like hops around, you know, and
I can't see Tom Cruise playing anything other than like a cop or like a secret agent. Like Tom Cruise typecast himself so much.
But no, this was back before he had like really made a name for himself, and so he could do roles like this. But it's such a strange movie, you know. It's kind of, and it's kind of gained like a cult status, but it's not.
It's kind of like Willow.
Yeah, it's not. Well, I think Willow was a better movie.
That's the difference.
But you know, he's also got. I think I've got a soft spot for him, especially because Alien is one of my favorite movies, and he's got Alien, he's got Blade Runner, Matchstick Men. Even, you know, further in, he did like Prometheus, Alien Covenant.
Which are visually beautiful films.
Visually really beautiful, and
all the technical aspects.
Yeah, and for all the hate they got, I kind of really liked that shift in tone a little bit to like the androids as the primary antagonist, because that was always like a thread through the older movies of like you know, distrust of the androids and stuff after the twist in the first movie, where the android turned out to be like trying to sacrifice them, or not sacrifice them per se, but his primary objective was to save the alien and bring it back so they could study it.
Yeah.
And that became kind of like a thread through the movies, but with Prometheus and Covenant, it became like the primary antagonist.
Yeah.
You know, like
I had to write a whole essay last semester on like a 10-page essay on the relationship between man and machine in Alien. So, like, you know, I feel very confident and well-versed in this topic.
Yeah. And so having that kind of come into play in an even bigger way in the new movies, I kind of really appreciate it. I thought that was really cool. Even if some people thought there was not enough.
I thought it was cool, too.
Yeah. Even if some people thought there was not enough Alien in Prometheus or too much Alien in Covenant, but I think that it worked really well.
Yeah.
You know, other like Gladiator is another kind of like prolific movie of his. So you got to kind of take some of the bad with the good.
Thelma and Louise.
Yeah. Lots of good from him, but there are those clunkers that, just like, you know, anybody that has a massive library like that.
When you've had such a long prolific career, it's hard not to have them.
Like those moments. But he's made some really excellent movies that just always stick in my mind. And I think that's the big thing, you know, is as a director, you want your movies to be remembered and to leave a mark. And his movies normally stick with me. Even some of his lesser known, like Matchstick Men, that's not really one of the ones that gets brought up a whole lot with Ridley Scott. But I thought Matchstick Men was so much fun. Like I just kind of, I enjoy his style of filmmaking, and it's one of those that, like, after I watch his movies, I can look back on them fondly, like even years later.
Yeah.
Oh, and The Martian.
The Martian, yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't mentioned The Martian yet, but that's another one that...
I liked The Martian. It wasn't too crazy on it, but I thought it was like a good movie.
Yeah.
Like a 3.5 or 4 out of 5. Like, even his movies that are like middle of the road for me, I think are like still like far superior than most other movies.
Yeah. So yeah, my number 7 is Ridley Scott.
That's great. And yeah, like what you're saying on like how he transferred androids to being like the primary antagonist for the new Alien movies.
Yeah.
I never understood why people don't want to see something different. They're always like, oh, we want the same old stuff.
Yeah.
We don't want anything new. We want more alien. Give me aliens shoving his tail in people's behinds. That's what I want.
And then Covenant came out, and just it was all about the aliens. Yeah. And he kind of like he still had the androids be like a primary antagonist. Yeah, like Michael Fassbender was still a prominent part of it. Yeah. But he was like, okay, you want aliens? I'll give you aliens. And they were like, whoa, there's a lot of aliens here.
Too many aliens,
yeah.
bro.
And it's like, you're never going to make them happy. And especially, it was kind of frustrating because when Prometheus came out, he tried so hard to be like, this is not an alien movie. Don't go into this expecting alien. This is, you know, a different thing. Yeah. And it's definitely tied in, you know. Yeah, he tried to kind of play it off like it's not. Yeah. At first they tried to kind of play it off like this is a completely different franchise, which it definitely is not. It's an alien movie.
Obvious that's not.
But he wanted to go a different direction, and he did that and was trying to tell people don't go in expecting Alien, and people still got mad that it wasn't Alien. Yeah. And I feel like the newer movies in the Alien series get unfairly bashed on sometimes because it didn't deliver what some fanboys wanted, even if he made it very clear that that's not what he was going to give them. Yeah.
I feel like to an extent sometimes in Covenant, I could see that with some of the character stuff. I don't really care about any of the characters. But in Prometheus, I think that he did a really good job with that one.
Prometheus is great. Really fun.
Yeah. I love that. Especially like the visuals are like stunning. They're breathtaking. That movie. That's always been one of the strong suits is like visuals. Even when talking about like 1492, the conquest of something that stupid movie was with the guy that looks like Fabio. Was it Fabio? It might have been Fabio.
Might have been.
But yeah, even that movie, no matter how dumb and historically inaccurate it was, still looked really pretty. Yeah. Like, you know, Ridley's got a lot going for him. Yeah. He's amazing. Okay, so I'm gonna go on to my number 6, which is Barry Jenkins. Another new filmmaker with not a whole lot under his belt, but again, very distinct style that you'd see in Moonlight and
that guy.
If Beale Street Could Talk.
Yeah.
When I first watched Moonlight, of course I was blown away with Moonlight. I loved that one immediately. And If Beale Street Could Talk, I was a little more torn on it at first. I wasn't like as into it as it was Moonlight. And then, like, the more, like, letting it marinate and thinking about it, I loved it. I hated seeing Dave Franco in it. I don't like Dave Franco. Dave Franco's stupid. He's an awful actor. He's got a stupid face, stupid voice. I don't like him. But, like, I love how, like, heartwarming and, like, endearing his messages are in his films, even if they're dealing with heavy subject matter, like unjust and police brutality, you know, or talking about corruption in the prison system. Yeah,
which is crazy because it's handled with such a unique voice. Yeah, in a society that's increasingly focusing on those topics, and we're getting a lot of like movies and messages and things like that about like those hot button topics. Barry Jenkins does it in a way that is subversive. It makes you think, and it definitely gets the point across, but not in the same kind of like.
It feels almost soft-spoken in a way, which is so interesting to see someone talk about these topics in such like a true and like heartfelt way, but not like, you know, shouting from the rooftop, saying it so under their breath, so subdued, where you totally get the message. And it's like clearly on screen, but it's not like, you know, it's not the only thing that he wants to get across. He's getting across all these different ideas. Yeah. And they're all different undertones behind this drop back story. I guess the drop back is the story of love and of a young man finding himself and all that. Like it's so interesting how he can, you know, fill all these stories with life. Yeah. And really like, I don't know. I love what he's doing. I think he's an amazing director. Yeah.
So, and it's interesting that that's your number 6, because to play off of that same theme of like, kind of subversively giving these messages about life, very life affirming, but in kind of a very sweet, like soft spoken way. My number 6 is Pete Docter.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
who did, if you're not familiar, he's another Pixar director. So he's my second on the list. He did Monsters, Inc., he did Up, he did Inside Out, he did Soul, which Soul, I think, unfairly flew under the radar because it came out during the pandemic. But all just really excellent, like very life-affirming messages, but told so sweetly.
Very much feel-good films.
Yeah. And they're so effectively done too. And I feel like as they went on, they got even more creative and subversive instead of starting to fall into that trap of feeling generic.
Yeah.
Soul, I think, is one of his most creatively written films, but I think it also breaks the mold a little bit of how it's framed. It doesn't feel like it moves in the same fashion as like his other movies and other just kind of like standard Pixar films. I feel like it kind of has a unique rhythm to it that I liked a lot. And so I have a lot of the same things to say about him that you said about Barry Jenkins. Interestingly enough, just how life affirming it is, but in such like a sweet, soft spoken way. It's very easy to be swept away and just kind of inspired by what he has to say.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, my number 6 is Pete Docter.
Yeah, it's kind of like Teddy Roosevelt's thing of speak softly and carry a big stick.
Yeah.
And that big stick is the big sad. Boy, do they get you with it.
Yeah.
They whack you over the head with it. But in such an endearing way where you like, you can feel what they're saying. It's not just like, here you go, bam, you're sad now.
Yeah.
For the rest of your day. It's you're kind of sad, but there's hope.
Mm-hmm.
And well, more so with Barry Jenkins. With Pete Docter, it's like, you know, you're sad in the beginning, in the middle, and then towards like once they get there, they're like, you leave on a high. Yeah. And it's so fun. He does an amazing job. I completely agree.
All right.
And it's funny because Pete Docter and Brad Bird were the ones that I had on my like to possible like my contenders list were those two.
Yeah.
So
I've got one more Pixar director that got bumped to a honorable mention slot instead, but
we'll talk about those.
Yeah.
So my number 5 is someone that, you know, shouldn't be surprised. Paul Thomas Anderson. And love me some PTA. I think everyone does. He's got he's so not boxed in to anything. He can just do whatever he wants. And I love that. I love how you start off with Boogie Nights and you have this constantly moving camera. We're gonna talk about constantly moving cameras later when we're doing one of the WAPs because I'm pissed off about that. But we got these constantly moving cameras and all this like this energy, you know, that like, you know, builds up to this like big crescendo towards the climax of the film as you know, Dirk Diggler, you know, falls out of grace. Yeah. And then you go from that like super energetic high like movie to something that's way more subdued, like Magnolia. Way longer, way slower pace, still like not too slow, still a lot of moving camera, but like as opposed to Boogie Nights, it's so different. It's so different. I know he did Heart 8 before, but I haven't seen Heart 8. And then you switch that up and go to a wacky love story with Adam Sandler and Punch Drunk Love. Yeah. How do you do that? And then after that, get this. After that, you want to know what he does? Do you want to know what he does? What does he do, Tyler?
I don't remember, but I bet you're gonna tell me.
You're right. I am gonna tell. It is There Will Be Blood. He does There Will Be Blood.
Oh yeah, he did.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that movie is a masterpiece. I full on think that movie has no flaws. It's perfect. And not only is that aided by Daniel Day-Lewis, but also by Paul Thomas Anderson's, I'm gonna say PTA. PTA's like just so unique, solid vision that he has in all his films. And you compare that with just like such a grand scope film about the oil industry and like family and what it means to like be successful in life and the American dream. And you go to something like a few years down the road, 10 years, a decade later, to Phantom Thread. Yeah. Which is so subdued and so quiet and yet beautiful in its own way. which he did not have a cinematographer for. He was his own cinematographer in that. And he had a skeleton crew for the entire film.
Yeah.
And it came out amazing. Incredible director. Such strong visual visions that he clearly knows how to get. He knows what he wants and he gets it every time.
Yeah.
And I love the guy.
No, definitely he's very, very good at what he does. My number 5, again, kind of a good segue, considering talking about a guy that gets what he wants and really just makes the movies he wants to make.
George Lucas.
Steven Spielberg.
Adam Sandler.
My number 5 is Quentin Tarantino. Who, again, just he is not like Ridley Scott in that respect. I think across the board, his movies are very effective at portraying what they want to portray. He's always has a very clear vision, and I don't feel like he's really made like a bad movie per se.
I don't think so.
I think if you had to name his weakest, it would probably be like Death Proof and Jackie Brown.
I was about to say those two exactly. Yeah.
But even those are far better than a lot of movies you could watch.
You kidding me? Yeah, they're still entertaining.
But then he's also got like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Django Unchained, Hateful Eight, Kill Bill 1 and 2, Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs. He's got such a consistent track record, and I feel like on top of making the movies he wants to make, he has so much of his hand in it that it's always so identifiable.
Yeah.
Even when they're a little bit different. Like Django Unchained is a far different movie than even Hateful Eight. They're both like westerns per se, but they're told so differently. The pacing of them, the dialogue in them are so different, but they're also so clearly Tarantino movies at the same time.
Yeah.
He's got like a signature that's hard to emulate. Just across the board with his dialogue, with his directing, with his music choices.
So unique.
His soundtracks are always like a high point for me. I love when he has a new movie come out. I like watching the movie and then I'll just go listen to that soundtrack for a while because they're so eclectic, but they're so Tarantino at the same time.
Yeah.
And we talked before about like our favorite film scores, and I've got a soft spot for some of those Western scores, like Ennio Morricone and stuff. And so having some of he relies really heavily on Ennio Morricone's music, especially in his Westerns, but even in like Kill Bill and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
And he's excellent at what he does. I don't have a lot more to say than just, it's immaculate the way he lays his hands on it and just makes something that's so him, but also just so eclectic and well done at the same time.
Yeah, and he's got such a consistent style too. Like when you see one of his movies, it's undeniable. It's one of his movies, no matter what. Whether it be something like Death Proof, which is so far from something like Kill Bill.
Yes.
It's him without a doubt. And you see that in the dialogue, the visuals, the feet shots, all that. Like it's so he has a clear love and passion for the art. And that love and passion has driven him so far in his career that he's clearly considered one of the greatest directors of all time.
And it comes out in his movies and outside of his movies. If you ever watch interviews or anything with him, just this vast like historic knowledge of just everything film. He can name, popular movies and even more obscure movies the way that we bounce off of each other. And then he'll also be able to tell you directors and writers and actors from like this tiny indie movie that like 10 people saw. Yeah. It'll be like a VHS at the bottom of a bargain bin. He'll be like, oh yeah, this is the year it came out. This is this is every line of dialogue from the movie.
Yeah.
And it's the way he talks, you can tell he just has such a love for the craft that comes out in his movies.
Yeah, and it hasn't like diminished at all through his entire career. You could watch an interview from like the 90s and then an interview now, and it is the exact same.
Yeah.
The guy, maybe some of his like interests have changed a little bit, but his love for film has not changed whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to see. He's one of those people that like when people talk about him and like they bring him up, I'm like, yeah, he's one of my favorite directors. He didn't make this list.
Really?
No. But I still love him for everything that he makes. I think that he makes amazing, incredible films, but for some reason it just didn't feel completely right to put him on the list.
Okay.
But even still, I guess I should address that, like, no matter how much I tweaked the list throughout, like, the entire week, it never felt truly right.
Yeah.
It never did. And, like, this is, like, the order I landed on, and I still don't feel completely okay with it. But this is, like, you know, the best I could get with it.
No, I think, and that's what we were talking about a little bit ago. When it came down to it, I kind of went with my gut and was like, okay, these have to be my top 10 because I don't even have them in order yet. I've just got like 12 or 13 directors that I can't, so I have to like cut them out and order them so I can make the list. But then I'm like, I have to have like a big list of honorable mentions as well because I can't go without saying these guys are great. They just didn't quite make the cut for me.
I was like, I got to get Hideaki Anno on this, and I was like, wait, no, I can't. But then how am I gonna fit Matt Johnson on? Well, I can't leave Matt Johnson off. Oh, I gotta get Derek Sienna for it. Like it's frustrating, but in the best way.
Yeah,
like it's because it's so fun to think about.
All right, number 4.
My number 4 is Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu. Oh my God, this guy is first off, Mexico in general has such a rich tradition in film that a lot of people just don't acknowledge. Like, you have, like, the big ones, like, I'm gonna call him AGN. AGJ, where'd that come from? AGN, who's made stuff like, Beautiful, who's made stuff like, Birdman, The Revenant, and more, like, you know, American, you know, cultures. And then he turns around, and then you have, Alfonso Cuarón, who, you know, clearly a prolific director that has won 2 Oscars for his directing. And you also have Guillermo del Toro, who has also won an Oscar for directing. Actually, all 3 have won Oscars for directing, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they're so amazing. And they have such, like, deep love for storytelling. Yeah. But all in such distinctly different ways. And I was having trouble leaving the other 2 off, because I felt like, you know, I wanted to put Guillermo on, but, like, I love his style, but I feel like I haven't seen like enough of him, and I also haven't like it just didn't feel right having him on. And he was doing so well for himself early on, and then he kind of like dipped a little bit. I feel like he tried to go a little bit more mainstream, and I think he's starting to kind of find his mojo again. But I kind of did this. I wanted Del Toro at first, but I'm like, there's too much like just kind of bland there kind of in the middle. When he was making like Are You Afraid of the Dark and stuff like that, God, where I was like, I don't know. But then he starts to make Crimson Peak. Yeah, exactly. And also, you know, like, which is on Netflix now. I'll never forget the first time I saw Pan's Labyrinth. Like, you know, so like movies like that, they just stick with you. Yeah. And it's just, he has that talent and that eye and that. But there's also something there where he's either cashing it in or just doing something mainstream. I don't know. I don't know exactly why. But every once in a while he'll drop something and I'm like, but I mean, sometimes the mainstream works out for him, like with Pacific Rim. But, you know, like but he had like another kind of mainstream hit with Shape of Water, which was totally not a mainstream subject matter or film in general, but still did amazing. And, you know, got him an Oscar, which he deserved. I think that the directing in that film was amazing. It was. And like, the guy is clearly very talented. And, you know, of course, Alfonso Cuarón, it goes without saying. The guy, he should be up there with, like, the greatest living directors of all time. Like, I don't know why I said living directors of all time. The greatest directors of all time. He should be up there. Because, like, you know, even stuff like Harry Potter, The Prisoner of Azkaban. Who saw that coming? Yeah. When I was a kid, I hated that one. Because I was like, this is weird. This isn't like my normal Harry Potter. Yeah. And I watched it again as an adult, and I'm like, this is amazing. Yeah. This is the best Harry Potter ever. It's so cool. It's very well done. He does everything in such a unique, fun style. Yeah. And a huge and a big theme or a contributor for like both him and AGN's films are Chivo, Emmanuel Lubezki, who has won 3 cinematography Oscars. He's my favorite cinematographer, and him and Maddie Libatique, and like they work together so well, and they make such beautiful films. But I think my favorite AGN movie is I have a lot to say about him. Sorry, and just Mexican cinema in general. I love Mexican cinema. My favorite film by him is probably Beautiful. Okay. Or I don't know if there's like a better way to pronounce that, but that's where I go with what's his name? Javier Bardem.
Mhm.
It's a film from Spain, and it's got some really heavy subject matter, like a lot of what I presume to be Spanish politics
Okay.
inside of that, but like it still holds so true to like America's problems and stuff, and like all like the political issues that we talk about, and the heart in it is so, oh my god, the ending, dude, it lives up to its name.
Yeah.
All right, and I think everyone should watch it. It's amazing.
My number 4, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, and I know you're not as big a fan as I am, but hopefully you won't judge me too much, is Matthew Vaughn.
I'm not gonna judge you. I was actually thinking of putting him on.
Okay, cool.
On my on my
like honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions, yeah. But then I was like, nah, he sucks.
He's
no, I like his stuff.
He's doing like modern stylized action movies. I feel like pretty much better than anyone in the game.
Yeah.
I feel like he is kind of what Zack Snyder wants to be, but Zack Snyder plays way too heavily into like those like dark, murky color palettes and like this self-serious, like,
he's trying so hard.
Yeah. And I feel like Matthew Vaughn just has this way of taking these like highly stylized action films, but injecting them with so much just like fun and humor and making them like just really, really entertaining to watch. It's escapism, but like in its finest form.
Yeah.
Even when he does ones that aren't supposed to be as like humorous, because he's got his movies like Kick-Ass especially, that's supposed to be like this big bombastic, like funny but also thrilling, like stylized superhero movie. And then he's also got movies like X-Men First Class and Layer Cake.
I keep forgetting he did X-Men First Class.
Yeah.
Wow.
He did First
he started
Class.
off that whole like resurgence of the X-Men films, didn't he?
Yeah.
Man, that's a good director to pick up for that.
Yeah. And he did Layer Cake. He did Stardust. Do you remember Stardust?
Oh, yeah, actually, yeah. I remember like when I was going over the list or like looking at directors to try and pick for the list.
Yeah.
I like went on his page on IMDb. I was looking at the movies, like, yeah, Kick-Ass, like Kingsman and all that. It was like Stardust?
Yeah, such a fantastic, like, underrated fantasy movie. Like, I don't feel
it's
like
so
that gets...
wacky.
Yeah, and I love that. Like, it's just, it's so unexpected. It's so subversive within its own genre.
Robert De Niro legitimately plays a gay pirate. And it's so...
Yeah,
it's
just,
amazing.
it's out of
He's
nowhere.
great in it. Yeah,
There's no... Yeah.
Yeah, he's dancing with a dress.
Yeah. The Kingsman movies, I feel like, are just... so well done.
I haven't seen Golden Circle, but I love the first one. The first one's amazing.
Golden Circle is not as good, but the Kingsman movies, I feel like that's just probably one of my favorite like running franchises right now.
Oh, yeah. And I think the comedy in it is like really underrated.
Yeah,
like they've got some great bits in that, especially like the ending part with the Swedish. Was she a princess or like what was
something like that?
Yeah, but she was like, we can do it in the ass or whatever at the end, and he was like, okay, and then like went and saved the day.
And then the upcoming prequel as well, The King's Man.
That's fun.
Which was supposed to come out like right at the beginning of the pandemic. I think it was supposed to come out like that summer that everything shut down.
That sucks.
And now it's still upcoming. I think it's finally coming like this Christmas or something. So we'll have to do an episode on that.
Oh, for sure.
But oh man, like just the way Matthew Vaughn makes his films is just, it's pure escapism, but it's in like its finest forms. They're just so eminently watchable. It's a treat for the eyes, but they're also like subversively well written.
Yeah.
It's not just like mindless either.
Oh no.
But no, I love Matthew Vaughn. And
it's clearly like a story behind it, especially with Kick-Ass. You could definitely see a story behind it.
Yeah.
With like the underdog tale and all that, but it's not like a lot of his movies actually are underdog movies, aren't they?
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah. But in Kick-Ass, it feels so true. Maybe it's because it's like the nerdy, scrawny white kid, and I just like identify with that a lot.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He's got a very like fun, modern style.
Yeah.
Okay. You ready for number 3?
Yep. We're going into our number 3.
There's a baby now.
Yeah,
I'm probably gonna cut. So like this is a baby over there now.
Yeah. So we have Luna with us now. She woke up and she's ready to talk movies.
Now she's gonna give us her top 10 directors.
No, she only has a top 3. That's why she slept through the others.
Luna came unprepared. But okay, my number 3 is Trey Edward Schultz. I felt very confident about these top 3, and Trey Edward Schultz is a guy who has made 3 films. Yeah, 3 films. He has made Krisha, which is a fantastic, extremely low budget, almost micro budget feature film, one of A24's first from 2015, shot in his house. And then you have It Comes at Night, which is marketed terribly.
Okay.
But
now I know
still
who
a
it is.
very good film. And then Waves, which no one saw Waves.
Yeah.
I went to the theater with my friend Logan. It was me, him, and one other guy. And that was it. No one else is in the entire theater.
When my A24 empty theater experience was with Green Room, Anton Yelchin's Green Room, and Patrick Stewart.
Yeah,
I
got a huge cult following now.
Yeah, I did a double header that day. I went to see 2 movies, and I'm trying to remember what the other one was, because I went to see one movie and it was like halfway packed, you know. Yeah. There were like plenty of other people there, and Haven didn't want to see them, and I was like, I've got these movies I want to see. So I went to the theater, and the first movie I saw, it was like a half full theater, but then I turned right back around, filled up my popcorn, filled up my drink, and ran over to the Green Room screening. And I bought both tickets. You know, it's like I wasn't like sneaking in. I went and bought both tickets right out the gate, and I told them I'm gonna go see this right after this. But I got into Green Room, and it was just dead empty. It was just me, and I just sat there and enjoyed Green Room all on my own.
Having this is kind of what it feels like to watch movies at Tyler's, because he's got like a full-on, like basically a mini movie theater. Yeah. With a projector screen and everything. And the surround sound and everything. But it's just you and I, so we can like sit and enjoy the movie if we want, or we can like make jokes and like do whatever we want. You know how funny it was to watch Malignant on that thing? Oh my god, it was great. And we almost spent money on it. That would have been my fault. Yeah, well, and I just assumed, because it was on HBO Max, and I'm like, I figure we'll just watch it here on the projector. And you were like, oh, maybe we should go see it at theaters, because theater experiences are really cool. And I'm like, okay, I get where you're coming from. Like, it seems silly to spend money on it since we can just watch it free, but also, like, theater experiences are great. We can go get the popcorn and the drinks and all that. Yeah. And after seeing it, I'm so glad we didn't spend money on it. Oh my god, yeah, man, that was... What a comedy. But we have a whole episode dedicated to that. Yeah. We won't delve back into it. No. But back to Trey Schultz. He's got again such a unique style, and this like also like a very unique with his visuals. He's very heavy-handed with the kind of floating camera feel that he has. It's constantly on like something like some sort of. It doesn't. I don't know if it feels handheld or what, because it feels so smooth, like it's gliding, almost like a glide cam, but not as like, you know, shaky. Yeah. And he uses it to like such great effect in movies like Krisha and movies like Waves. In Waves, actually, right in the beginning, he does that famous Alfonso Cuarón spinning in the car shot. Yeah. And he pulls it off perfectly. He did it, and people are always like, "Oh, it's like, how do you do that shot? It's so crazy." Trey Schultz did it. Yeah. He made it work. And one thing that I love about him is that he's a very young director, and you know, it's so cool because he actually ties into my second favorite director who is coming up, because he worked on a couple of his movies, and he learned a lot from him. But he puts so much into his characters. In Waves, it is basically a biopic about Trey Schultz and his life, and growing up in like Florida around this specific time. And that movie probably like resonates with me so much because it's like, you know, growing up in, I think I've brought it up before on like maybe it was the music or the soundtrack. It was the soundtrack thing. Yeah. And like it puts me in the and it really brings me in because like it's got that music that I would listen to at that exact time where it takes place and all that. But yeah, it's about his life, but he also, instead of just making it a biopic about him, he spins it. You know, and also makes it like a film about like about racial tension and like, you know, how the struggle of like growing up being an African American kid in this time with like, you know, having a mother who's not your actual like biological mother and all that, like all these different things going into it, and having someone in the prison system, a family member, like basically losing someone and all that, and like growing up and getting past that. Yeah, very beautiful film that everyone should see at some point. But yeah, he touches on all those so well. And the guy's amazing. He is really, really talented, up and coming director, and I think everyone should just be on the lookout for it because like he's amazing. I'm gushing thinking about how great his films are.
Yeah,
I'm really excited to see what he has next.
So we're on number 3.
Yeah,
my number 3 we talked about in a previous episode that ended up not being, we couldn't salvage it. But my number 3 is David Lowry.
Wow.
Who did Anthem Body Saints, Pete's Dragon, Ghost Story, The Old Man and the Gun, The Green Knight, and Saint Nick, which I haven't seen yet. We still haven't been able to procure a copy of that.
We'll see it at some point.
Yeah. But I mean, we sat and made a whole episode just dedicated to him after Green Knight came out
too. That
we couldn't salvage. But I mean, even before we watched The Green Knight, he'd already pretty much cemented himself as like one of my favorites. And going through them all was just a pleasure. Especially The Old Man and the Gun. I just loved that movie. And then after watching The Green Knight, it was just kind of like the cherry on top. He has this, I mean, his visual style is very good just across the board, but he has a very his movies have a very visual aspect to them, where a lot of movies focus a lot on the dialogue. His movies thrive on the visuals and the way that he uses those to enhance the story.
Yeah.
And I love that. Kind of that visual storytelling and the visual world building. Just I have a really, really high appreciation for what he's done with the cinematography in these movies. And I mean, A Ghost Story, I guess, is one of the primary examples because it's primarily a
only
visual
made for like
film.
$100,000 too.
Yeah. But even his other movies, Pete's Dragon, The Old Man and the Gun, Green Knight, they all have really beautiful shots and vistas, and he uses those to capitalize on the storytelling rather than just making them a backdrop.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed going through the movies that I hadn't seen, and it just kind of made me appreciate the ones I had seen even more. So my number 3 is David Lowry.
Yeah, it's he's one of those directors that does not box himself in still with like the films that he makes. You know, Anthem Body Saints is so different from The Old Man and the Gun.
Yeah.
And Ghost Story is different from everything else. And then you turn around and make a medieval fantasy like The Green Knight. Like it's so unique. It's so, you know, authentic to him. Like, and even though all these different films are coming out of like, you know, different aspects of like his like, you know, personality, his life, and like what he's learned in life, they still have a very consistent, unique feel to them that feels so much like him. And he almost made my list. He was number 11 actually.
Yeah.
On the list. But yeah, I'm really surprised by like how much I enjoyed his films and how great of a director he is, really.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so my number 2 is Terence Mavic. He's kind of like actually my number 2 is what I think a lot of people would consider like a peak pretentiousness.
Yeah.
In filmmaking, but like I love what they do. Terence Malick, you know, beautiful visuals, and like his films are basically poetry in motion. Like everything you see has like some sort of like deeper philosophical meaning behind it. And I guess you say that about a lot of films, but like with his, it's like he's seeing it from like a perspective of like someone with a degree in philosophy who I think he taught philosophy at a university for a while, but he's, you know, seeing it from like Heidegger's perspective, or like, you know, Nietzsche's perspective, and really like delving into that psyche of like what makes a person in like Tree of Life, and in what was his most recent film? I haven't finished it. It's very long and slower. So I've been trying to finish it. I bought it on Amazon. I've been trying to finish it, but I have not done it yet. So I want to sit through the entire thing. Yeah. But you know, stuff like that, Thin Red Line, New World. Dude, I'm like having so much trouble thinking of like his movies for some reason. I've seen most of them. Terrence Malick movies. Badlands is one of them. Hidden Life, that was that one. Hidden Life, you know, Days of Heaven and all that. And even in his like Freefall trilogy, which would be To the Wonder, Knight of Cups, and Song to Song, which are considered as like worst movies. I love them. They got like poetic style that is like legitimately all visuals and motif and narration, yet still holds so much emotion in them because you can tell they're coming from like a place that means a lot to him. These are all stories that he's experienced and been through. And he's writing about them to try and like, you know, get past these moments in his life. And that's beautiful. Like the guy's an amazing writer, I think. And, you know, I feel like a lot of people definitely aren't into what he makes, but that's fine. I understand that, but like, you know, he's really, what are you doing to your baby?
She's just smiling. We're having a moment.
Childrenist. Okay, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think he makes art like legitimate, real, meaningful art. And he puts himself into everything that he does. Yeah. And he taught Trey Schultz a lot because Trey Schultz worked on Song to Song with him and all that. So, you know, he lended to another one of my favorite directors. Yeah. His middle name is Frederick. I'm seeing on here. But yeah. Terence Mavic, amazing.
All right. My number 2 is another one that I feel like is kind of like a Matthew Vaughn style, and it's Mike Flanagan.
Oh,
I feel
really?
Like, I feel like he's taking the horror genre and kind of changing the game a little bit. Kind of like Matthew Vaughn is like the top of his game right now for like action and like stylized like action movies and stuff. I feel like Mike Flanagan is kind of like my top of the list for horror right now. I feel like he's doing
modern
things
horror
that
specifically because like, it's got a very like modern feeling to it, just like Matthew Vaughn in his action films.
Yeah, a lot of it. I think Hill House and Bly Manor, what he's been The Haunting of Hill House, The Haunting of Bly Manor, what he's been doing for Netflix, those have a little bit more of kind of like a retro flair to them. But I think even then, a big part of that is because they're based on like old novels and even like past interpretations, like past movies of Hill House and stuff.
He was telling me about those years ago. Tyler was.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, you gotta watch them. They've got ghosts in the background." And I was like, "Who's this big guy telling me what to watch?"
And that's the thing is, it's like it's so well done and so like almost like sneaky, just how well it's shot. But if you watch, it's like especially Hill House. Hill House is one of the best like character driven horrors I've seen probably like ever. And it's the way that it's not the things that you notice right away, it's the things that you don't notice when you go back and watch it again, which it is more of a commitment. It's not a movie, you know, it's a 10-part series. Yeah. But when you go back and rewatch it knowing full well what you're looking for, there's so much going on in the background and kind of in the peripheral of the screen that you don't notice at first. The way it's shot is beautiful. Like the visuals just in general are really good, but you kind of have to watch it a few times to really appreciate just how much is put into each shot. Yeah. And there's also an episode that like the entire episode is one tracking shot. And it follows them.
That's really cool.
It follows them throughout an entire funeral home, but also it follows them through the past and the present. Ooh. And so it all takes place on one set, but in different timelines and different rooms. And it's so immaculately done.
Amazing directing right there.
Yeah. No. So I know that you don't necessarily share that same love that I do. But I think if you delve into more of his filmography, especially like Hill House is like the top of his game. I could rave about Hill House for a long time. Yeah. But even his other stuff like Oculus, Hush is really just so well done. Absentia.
I do like Hush a lot.
Yeah. And even so I don't know if you remember Ouija. But
Ouija.
Like, the first Ouija came out,
the second one,
and it was not very good. And then he came in and like turned it around and made like a really good sequel. We need
someone to come in here and rescue this.
Yeah, and I think that also kind of shows
get the Flanagan man on the
in Gerald's Game. Gerald's Game has like the singular like most
Gerald's
painful
Game looks
and in your face,
genuinely frightening with his visuals from what I've seen of it.
No, Gerald's Game is a a little bit more straightforward horror, where, like I said, Hill House is a little bit more like character and drama driven. Gerald's Game is more like straight horror.
Yeah.
And it's got like the single most painful moment
in the handcuffs.
Yeah. I won't delve too much into it for our viewers, but it's hard to watch. Yeah. It's so painful, just visually and like psychologically. But no, Mike Flanagan is my number 2. I always get excited, and he's got a new one coming out soon. He's got a new Netflix series called Midnight Mass, I think it is.
Dude.
And so I'm really excited for that one. But yeah, he's one of my favorites.
I'm thinking we should do a spotlight on Mike Flanagan at some point. That's not like, you got me legitimately excited talking about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not that I don't love his stuff. From what I have seen, I think he's done, like, he's very good. I think that some of his like visual aspects are really cool, but just not what I prefer. Like his films look extremely distinctly digital, and I've come to realize for some reason over the past like couple years that I'm like I identify much more with like that grainy, gritty film look. Yeah. And I shoot on digital. Clearly, this is my camera. Yeah. But like I really love the film look, and he goes for like a very like clean, slick look, and I like it. I think he does great with it. I just prefer the gritty side. But story wise, directing wise, I think that he's clearly has like an immaculate love. Yeah. For the craft. And I ain't talking Minecraft. And how'd you feel about that bit? Was that all right? What'd you think?
I mean, that's fine.
That's fine. All right. I mean, whatever. It's not gonna ruin my day. It's not ruining my day or anything. It's not gonna ruin my day.
It was really funny.
Thank you. See, now I feel better.
It was really funny.
See, now I feel like you're hamming it up a little bit, and you're not being genuine with me.
I'm always genuine with you.
I don't know how I feel about that. Anyways, yeah, Mike Flanagan. I'm really excited to see more of his stuff. It's also really fun to see like a modern filmmaker that's making actual good adaptations of Stephen King work, and not really bad ones like Cell. Yeah. Let's get John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson, just put them in a movie about cell phones. These two the oldest men possible we can get for this. Let's put them in.
Wait. Was it them again for Cell?
It was them again for Cell, just Cell. Like 1408.
I saw 1408. Yeah. I never saw Cell. I didn't realize it was the same guys.
Yeah, no, it's stupid.
They're like the unofficial Stephen King actors. The Stephen King troupe.
Yeah, that's them. If Stephen King's not going to be cameoing in his own movie, that's
got to be John Cusack or Sammy Jackson.
He has it in a clause that they have to show up in movies. They don't even get a choice. I guess we should go to some honorable mentions.
Yeah, we can do our honorable mentions before number 1.
So I have a bit of an issue. I have a list of 52 directors that I started off with. This right here is my top 10. And I finished them last night while I was watching what's it called? I guess 42 of them would be my honorable mentions. Yeah. But I'll only read out like a couple of notable ones. Denis Villeneuve barely didn't make the cut. Edgar Wright. Andrew Hukuliak or Hushliak. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce it. Director of my second favorite film, Violent. Robert Eggers. David Lowry, of course. A lot of them are ones that I talked about already. Safdie brothers. Kenneth Lonergan. Park Chan-wook. Yorgos Lanthimos. Wes Anderson. Paweł Pawlikowski. Andrew Dominic was actually the one. He's the one I want to talk about the most. Great filmmaker. Made a couple movies. Very unique style. Very brooding, but super fun. Like fun in like a not fun sense. Yeah. And I guess Frank Darabont. And there's a lot more, but I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
All right, my honorable mentions. My third Pixar director, Andrew Stanton. Good one. He got knocked off the list, but he's on there. David Fincher, the Coen brothers, Robert Zemeckis, who I feel like
Robert Zemeckis.
I feel like he's just one of the most uneven directors. Again, when we were talking about film scores, I knocked Back to the Future was my number 10, and it got knocked off. It's the same with like Robert Zemeckis. Like I had him on the list originally, and I'm like, he got knocked off for better directors. But I feel like at the top of his game when he made like, you know, Romancing the Stone, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Back to the Future, stuff like that is great. But, you know, then he also made like What Lies Beneath and Beowulf and the Jim Carrey Christmas Carol and stuff like that. And it's like, oh.
Didn't he also make that one recently with Steve Carell?
Yeah, Welcome to Marwin with the dolls. Yeah, that was also him.
Man, he just feels like kind of hackish to me.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of his stuff.
Tim Burton, kind of a guilty pleasure. Like he makes some excellent stuff, but he also has some, you know, that are just kind of like
a
okay,
lot of duds.
Yeah,
what we do when
but I'd be a little bit remiss if I didn't at least mention him as you know, someone that I enjoy a lot.
He's at least very distinct and unique. You can definitely give him that.
Yeah, Andy Michetti, who I talked about, I wanted to put him on, but he just didn't have enough filmography to really justify it.
Yeah.
I know you had a couple movies that only had, or a couple directors that only had like 2 or 3 movies. And so I thought about it because the way he did it, chapters 1 and 2 are so good. Yeah. But beyond that, his claimed fame is Mama.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I didn't have enough to go on to put him in a top 10. And the other one, this was my number 11. This is the one that took me so long to knock off my list. Was Hayao Miyazaki.
Yeah.
Basically all of the Studio Ghibli movies.
Yeah. I mean, he's prolific.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those where it's like he's got a very distinct eye for film. Mm-hmm. You can tell whenever it's one of his movies rather than just another like anime.
Yeah. Weeb things.
Yeah. But, you know, I mean, you can name any of them, whether it's My Neighbor Totoro, Kiki's Delivery Service, Castle in the Sky, Porco Rosso, like Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle. Mm-hmm. So many iconic...
Oh, yeah. Ponyo.
Yeah. Even Ponyo. Like, he had such a... He's like the Scorsese of Japanese animated films.
He just makes a million of them, or he did. Yeah, I also had an anime director on he was on my list for the longest time until I decided to bump him off for other people, but Hideaki Anno with like the Ava franchise. Yeah. And also like Shin Godzilla and stuff like that. He's also directed some live action films that have gotten like a lot of critical acclaim. Yeah. But yeah, so yeah. One more that I wanted to mention real quick was Steve McQueen, director of like the 12 Years a Slave and Hunger and Shame. A different Steve McQueen than the actor. Yeah. Not the 50s and 60s, or I guess more like 60s, 70s, 80s actor, but... Yeah, no, that guy sucks. This guy's awesome. But I don't like old things.
Yeah. No, we talked about that the other day, how I kind of appreciate the actor Steve McQueen and you appreciate the director.
Yeah, I love the director. He was very close to making the list too. Mm-hmm. But
all right.
Amazing.
So with that said, those are some honorable mentions, and for our number 1, what have you got?
My number 1 is clear. It's Darren Aronofsky. Mm-hmm. Love his stuff. Yesterday, after I had to watch Tusk, to make myself feel better, I watched Black Swan afterwards, and I felt immediately better in the worst sense possible because it made me feel awful because that's what his movies do. Yeah. He has a very clear style of like talking about, you know, passion and like pursuing things and like human destruction through want and desire and addiction, and for some reason that hits at home with me so hard, even though I have nothing to do with any of that. Yeah. I don't know what it is. It gets to me. It makes me feel. And
it does resonate. Really, he's very good at his craft.
Yeah, his movies make me feel more than anyone else. Yeah. And I don't know what it is. And they also are all very consistent in a way that I didn't think they would be. Mm-hmm. Except for, you know, maybe a couple outliers like I guess probably the only outlier I can really think of is The Fountain. And that's not even still too different. It's just like the color grading and all that makes me feel like have like a different feeling to it. Also, it's not a very good movie. But even like his you know, not so good movies, I can still appreciate on certain levels. And like with their brutality and their like heaviness and all that. I love it. I think he's a masterful filmmaker. I think he can kind of be a bit of a douche sometimes, but so can everyone else. He's from New York. That's just how he is.
It's just like, part of him.
Yeah, like, and sometimes I grow out a mustache to look like him. So, you know, I love Aronofsky. Yeah.
And my number 1, again, I think it comes as no surprise. It's Edgar Wright. Yeah. Who I think does kind of the best blend of humor with any other genre you can think of, whether it be more like humor, like black comedy, like humor and horror with, you know, Shaun of the Dead and I guess The World's End, although that might be more sci-fi. But, you know, again, it's humor and sci-fi, humor and cop thriller for his original
He
trilogy.
just puts everything he loves in it.
Yeah. Scott Pilgrim is, granted, based on comics, but that visual flair and his passion for music, but also hilarious.
It's such a unique vision.
Yeah.
Like, who else would imagine putting that on screen like that?
Yeah.
Zack Snyder? Oh, no.
No.
Like, come on. No, he'd make it dark and brooding and cringy.
Yeah. And then Baby Driver, which is maybe the least like outright humorous, but also showcases his flair for directing and especially like putting music to his directing. The way he synchronizes the movie to his music is just immaculate. And even the upcoming Last Night in Soho, which we were going to do an episode on, looks really exciting because it looks like it's going to stray even further away from like his signature humor,
It's gonna be, like, way more horror
and more into just a straight like horror thriller. So I'm really excited to see what he does with that. Now that he's kind of branching out from his signature kind of like funny but blended with other genres. This is going to be a more outright like genuine attempt at just a genre piece.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited to see what he does with that. But yeah, I think Edgar Wright is my number one.
Yeah. And he's clearly like an amazing. You could tell some people it's kind of hard to see like how great their directing is because it's like a little bit more subdued and depending on the picture. Like Chloe Zhao in Nomadland.
Yeah.
I think her directing is a little bit harder to find. Or her vision is a little bit harder to find in that since a lot of it is improv and all that. But with Edgar Wright, everything is so precise. Yeah. And it's so exact to what he imagines in his head that it's like you can't dance around how talented he is as a director. No. Yeah, he was also on my honorable mentions and all that. Like, clearly amazing filmmaker. Yeah. Who is another one that's like all like Quentin Tarantino just loved the craft and just through his basic through his like encyclopedic knowledge of the like of film just and was like I'll just make all these. Yeah. And it's so fascinating, not just listening to like interviews and stuff, but he's much more active on social media too than a lot of other directors. He's not like shy or reclusive. He's very passionate about the craft, but he also loves to share that craft. You know, and he'll constantly be on social media talking about like, you know, his favorite movies and his favorite shots from movies and his favorite songs from movies and things like that. You can tell that this is his life. Yeah. This is what he thinks about all the time. And you don't want to get tired of like what I caught my phone. You don't want to get tired of what you're doing. Yeah. Like and clearly he's never going to. Like it would show in his films and it has not yet. Everything has been so great. He's another one of those like Quentin Tarantino again. He's just like and has not had a dud. Yeah. It's all been really good. Yeah. I love that about him. So with that said, we've spent a lot of time talking about our favorite directors, and I think that's great. I feel like we'll probably move through our WAPs a little bit faster this time, mostly because it's unpleasant. We're going to transition into the Year of Spectacular Men. Wait, hold on. I had an idea. Do you want to see who has the pain or the pleasure of talking about their least favorite movie by doing rock, paper, scissors for it? Okay. You sound so excited. Are you ready? All right, so if I win, we talk about Tusk first? Yes. Okay. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. I hate you. All right. Okay, so we are not talking about the Year of Spectacular Men. We're going to start by talking about Tusk. Oh, fuck you. So, I mean, we might talk about some areas a little bit more than others, but I feel like this is probably going to go a little bit quicker. Yeah. I want to try to get through them and move on. We're not going to even though this was my idea or our idea. So if you're not familiar, we have our own custom ranking system, the WAP Master. It's an acronym to cover 10 different categories of filmmaking, starting with the letter W, which stands for writing. Is the film well written, clever, and cohesive? For Tusk,
It also says, are there plot holes, cringeworthy dialogue, or unmotivated moments just to squeeze in a gag or a sexual encounter? That's very important before I mention this. Yeah. Because for Tusk, I gave it a 1 because it all feels like that. There's maybe a couple lines where before you're supposed to, I mean, I guess you're always supposed to know that Michael Parks is like a crazy evil psycho. Yeah. But before he starts being a crazy evil psycho, he has like a little bit of like monologuing that isn't awful, but that's about the best I can say for the dialogue in the movie. It's basically all just an excuse to say really asinine things. It's about these two guys that run a podcast.
Foreshadowing. It's so annoying.
Yeah. It's about these two guys that run a podcast. Tusk is about these two guys that run a podcast, but not like a regular podcast. That
pissed me off when I saw that. I was like, oh, this dick. Talking about podcasts.
Yeah, because Kevin Smith, on his podcast, they were talking about like an ad for, my understanding is, so what happened was, they found an actual ad like on like a local business website, kind of like a Craigslist, but like a local Craigslist, where a guy was offering free lodging to someone who would come to his house and dress up as a walrus. And that was supposed to be a comedic post. It wasn't serious. Yeah. It was done by like a local comedian who thought that it would be a funny thing. And it was well known that it was a joke.
Which, granted, that is kind of funny.
Yeah. But then Kevin Smith took it in the worst, most unfunny direction and said, what if we made an actual horror movie about a guy who offers to let someone stay at his house and then turns him into an actual walrus? And then, so they have this whole episode of their actual real life podcast where they're talking about like the scripting and the idea for their like walrus horror movie. And then within the context of Tusk, it's about podcasters who are laughing about other people's like misfortune and dumb humor and stuff like that. And he goes and finds an ad for someone for lodging when he gets stuck in Quebec, Canada. And Manitoba. And this guy in Manitoba ends up drugging him and turning him into a walrus. And that's the entire concept. It's based on a gag post that they took in just a horrible direction. And then he had the pretentious idea to also make his characters podcasters that would laugh about stuff like this, just like he is an actual podcaster who laughs about stuff like this. And the whole thing is just so many levels of just pretentious, bad ideas. Yeah. And the dialogue is no more clever than everything I just described. Yeah. And so I gave it a 1.
Yeah. I gave it a 3, and that's primarily for Johnny Depp's character. Yeah. I thought that like when he came on, I was like, okay, something different, thank God.
I gave it a little bit higher in the acting, but I didn't give them any more credit for their dialogue.
Well, it's like I thought some of the lines that he spoke in that moment were like at least a little funny, but like only in the beginning. Once like the monologue that he was giving to Haley Joel Osment and whatever her name is, something Rodriguez, like I thought that like once Genesis Rodriguez, I thought that like, you know, once they kept going along, I was like, okay, this is just getting worse and worse. But like a few points, I thought Johnny Depp actually had some like somewhat witty-ish lines, I guess. Maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but yeah, no, a 3 because the writing is so. If you know what this movie's about, which you're going to know because it's in the trailers, it's all over like the posters and all that. It's obvious what it is. Yeah, and if you know that Michael Parks is turning Justin Long into a walrus, everything is so laid out for you right there. Yeah. There is nothing to find out in this movie.
The concept is so ludicrous and so dumb that you almost go in thinking there's got to be more to this. This can't be as...
Yeah, exactly. That's what I went in with.
Yeah. You kind of go in with an expectation of there's got to be something more to this concept. That can't be the entire movie. And it's the entire movie.
That's the entire thing. Yeah. And it's resolved in the dumbest way possible.
It is.
What
and
the hell was that?
I was gonna get to that too in a little bit. Probably just in our next category. But yeah. It's as far as the writing,
it's like you could tell they had the initial concept and they're like, so funny. But then how do we end it? And they just didn't know how to end it, so they just did it that way.
And that's the dumb thing. It's not even like their funny idea. They found someone else's like funny post, and they're like, "How can like we make this?"
And you
funny?
see no credit for that person anywhere in the film. Yeah, but the writing is awful. I think the big monologue that Michael Parks gives is really stupid. I think even for me, I'm such a pretentious douche with the movies that I watch, and even for me, his dialogue where he's constantly quoting these writers and
poets and things like that, trying to just sound smart and sophisticated.
It's so pretentious. It's so dumb. You can tell it's coming from what's his name, Kevin Smith, not knowing anything about any of that, but just putting it in because he's like, it'd be cool if he did that. Yeah. Really dumb. All the characters are so unlikable. Mm-hmm. There is not one character to root for in this movie. Maybe Johnny Depp, but he's so much of a goof character that he doesn't even really have much substance to him whatsoever. Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest part of it is they try to justify this movie's bad intent by saying, oh, well, these people are kind of jerks in their podcast, so it's fine if bad stuff happens to them. And it's just not. But I guess I'll talk about that in a second. Is it okay if we move to Heart?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Next in the WAP Master is H for Heart. That says, do movies revel in their own bad intent? We normally watch movies with heart to make us feel things. Do the movie compel us, inspire us, or make us think? Do we learn or grow from them? Or is it forgettable and too despicable for its own good? I feel like this movie is the definition of too despicable for its own good. I gave it a 1. Normally I would give you a spoiler alert, but I just don't care because I don't think anyone should watch this movie. No. At the end, Michael Park's character has successfully transformed Justin Long into a functioning walrus. I hate saying it. Even just having it come out of my mouth is just the worst.
It's like a 4-year-old came up with this.
Yeah. And they leave him like that. The end of the movie, it all culminates in Justin Long's character tusking Michael Parks' character to death. And that's his transformation into full walrus, and he can't recover from that. And so the ending of the movie, the final shot of the movie, is his former podcasting buddy and his girlfriend visiting him at an animal sanctuary that doesn't even look like a functioning sanctuary. It looks like they put him in a broken down sanctuary somewhere.
Put a whole walrus in this tiny cage-off thing with a kiddie pool and a little igloo.
So they put him in a little animal sanctuary, and his former podcasting buddy and his girlfriend show up and give him a fish and say that they still and they say that they still love him even though he's a walrus, and then they leave and he starts kind of roaring like a walrus and cries a little bit and goes back into his little hut. And that's how it ends. That there's nothing satisfying or anything to motivate you or inspire you or make you feel. It revels so much in its own bad intent that it supersedes humor and just feels bad. Yeah. It's distressing and disturbing, and I came out of it with just a bad taste in my mouth. And I thought after seeing it once that watching it this time for the podcast, the effect would be a little bit less. But it didn't. After the movie was over, I just felt bad. I felt a little bit sick to my stomach. I don't like anything about it. Yeah. It just makes you feel disgusting.
Yeah. I didn't feel as awful afterwards. I just felt man, that was a waste of time. That was stupid. I didn't feel sick. But I also give it a 1 because it's this movie was made as a joke. And it's not even a good joke. Yeah. It's you go in with an intent to make something that's knowingly stupid. But you don't have any substance or any actual commentary or anything behind it. It's dumb. And then they come out not learning anything. Mm-hmm. No one has changed. There's no character arcs. He's just a walrus. Yeah. What is that some sort of metaphor? If you're gonna be a dick, you're gonna turn into a walrus. No, he's it's so dumb.
It's a bad joke based on another just mediocre joke. Yeah. And none of it ever comes around to make any sort of sense as to why it was made.
No, like the actual like the original joke is just like it's one of those ones where you look at it and you're like, that's all right.
Yeah.
And then you forget about it. You don't think about it ever again. But for some reason, they thought it was so funny they wanted to make an entire movie about it.
Kevin Smith did think about it again.
He thought about it like a whole movie.
A lot.
Yeah. And boy, do we get the misfortune of having to see that.
Mm-hmm.
You ready to move on from this stupid?
So next in WAP Master is A for acting. This one, I don't like giving the movie any credit, but I gave the acting a 7. I think at least for the primary cast, Michael Parks is, I mean, he's just great wherever. You know, he throws himself in regardless of what he's doing. I mean, what he's doing is awful, but man, he did it with some gusto. Mm-hmm. Johnny Depp's character is so goofy and off the wall. It's like the eccentric characters he plays for Tim Burton, but even like dialed up a little bit more, it feels like.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's the most entertaining part of the movie. Whenever he's there, it's like, okay, it's kind of fun and goofy now. Like, I enjoyed that part. Even Justin Long, who's normally just
Justin Long is the most like vanilla person I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah. But I feel like this is probably the best acting I've ever seen from him. Yeah. As far as his roles go.
Yeah.
Like
his range. Surprisingly well.
Yeah. And so as much as I don't like to give this movie credit for anything, I feel like the primary cast gave it their all.
That is so funny because I also gave it a 7.
Yeah.
Because like it would be, the acting is genuinely good in this because they're all friends and they're all trying to do good for each other. And it would be so much higher. It would probably, it could like conceivably be a 10 if the writing wasn't so darn stupid.
Yeah.
If it wasn't written by some man baby in a hockey jersey, like and super long jean shorts.
Who, I guess we should say, I don't want to bash Kevin Smith too much just as a person. I know he's had a lot of like personal issues recently, and he's tried to kind of like turn around and conform his life a little bit.
Bad. Yeah,
but
he's vegan now or something like that.
He had, what was it, a heart attack or a stroke?
He had a heart attack.
Almost died, and basically just turned his life around. He changed his not just his diet, but like his entire lifestyle. Yeah. Lost a lot of weight and focused really hard into just like better living. And it seems like it's kind of changed him a little bit just as a person, like just the value he puts into things. And I don't know if the Kevin Smith that we have now would have made this movie.
I'm not sure.
But yeah, I don't want to bash too much on Kevin Smith himself. But as a director, it's a dumb movie.
I think maybe the whole man baby comment was a little harsh. Yeah. But he does genuinely seem like a nice guy. He seems like someone that I'd want to hang out with.
At least now.
But he just like he just, you know, filmmaking wise, you got quirks and you got lucky.
Because even as far as like filmmaking quirks and stuff, at the end of the movie, there is a sad song that plays over the first part of the credits, which I think is supposed to be part of the joke. Because after that song plays, instead of having more music, they play a clip from the original podcast where Kevin Smith is pitching this movie, and they're laughing about it, where he talks about just how dumb this ending is going to be and how dumb they want it to be. Yeah. And he talks about how like they're going to have him in this animal sanctuary and they're going to play a sad song as he roars while he eats this fish because it'll be hilarious and stuff like that.
It just came off sad. Yeah,
it wasn't good. It didn't play right.
No, tonally
dissonance. Yeah. But it all of it was just bad. And again, like listening to that podcast, I did not like him. But I've seen some stuff with him recently where he's talked more about just himself and the way things are since his heart attack and stuff. And I feel like that's a little bit different. But like listening to the credits over this movie, I didn't like the movie. I didn't like anything about the movie. I didn't like the pitch in the podcast. I didn't like the way they were laughing and the way they were just kind of being jerks during their podcast. Like the Kevin Smith that got famous for like Clerks and things, I don't think I like. Mm-hmm. But I feel like he's at least trying to better himself now.
Yeah, and it shows. Like seeing him in like interviews now, he seems like a genuine person that like cares about others and himself more than he did before. Yeah, and that's nice to see.
But we've gone off on a little bit of a tangent.
Acting wise, still, acting is like it's good.
Yeah,
it's good. When Johnny Depp comes in, I think Johnny Depp did like a really good job. I think Genesis Rodriguez did like maybe the best out of anyone in here.
Yeah,
I thought like when she had like her emotional moments, she freaking carried it.
Mm-hmm.
She like did great. My only complaint is that they didn't really give Haley Joel Osment anything to do.
Yeah,
he was just there for certain scenes. He'd have like certain lines here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But like you're saying, Justin Long surprisingly well. Like he in the scenes where he'd be like freaking out and like emotionally torn apart.
Yeah,
I thought he actually pulled it off pretty well, which is so surprising for Justin Long.
I know,
of all people. And like I guess we'll get into what I'm about to say when it comes to directing. But yeah, Michael Parks is Michael Parks. He's always good.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it. Oh, but the freaking guy from Epic Mealtime.
Yeah,
why'd you put him in here? He was like he showed up right in the beginning, and it started the movie off so annoying for me.
Yeah, and again, it just shows up kind of as a goof. He's there for what, 30 seconds or something?
Yeah, saying some stupid Canada things, and I found it so not funny.
Mm-hmm.
It was so lame.
Yeah,
I was like, this sounds like dad jokes, but like not the good kind.
Mm-hmm.
It was frustrating.
Yeah. So P in Wapmaster is for production design. Do sets and costumes fit the genre and time period? Does makeup portray the situation? Does the beaten down hero still look perfectly coiffed while lying in the dirt? I gave this a 1 because I feel like everything about it looked bad, and I think part of that was on purpose. I think it was supposed to look kind of like cartoony and off-putting, but it was also just dumb. Like there were moments where when he's supposed to be the walrus, you see like his head kind of like retract into the walrus costume and stuff. And they didn't. I was going to get to that again in editing. I was going to give editing like a really bad score because I'm like, they didn't cut out these shots where like very clearly it's just a man in like a very stiff walrus suit.
Yeah, it feels like Kevin Smith went like, they got a couple takes and they're like, oh, all those are kind of bad. Whatever, it's a dumb movie. Let's move on. So
I gave that a 1 because even then it's all very dissonant. You know, it's supposed to be like modern day, and a lot of them are wearing modern day stuff. But then he gives the Canadian people very generic like Canadian clothes to wear, and he gives Michael Parks very generic like fancy person clothes to wear, and Johnny Depp's supposed to be kind of like a wacky eccentric character, so they give him like a beret and like wacky clothes to wear. It's all just very, very not good.
Well, I gave it a 5 because I thought it was kind of like middle of the road because I felt like the sets themselves, the costumes, I didn't even notice. That's how like that's how unimportant they were. But like when it came to the sets, I thought like, I mean, I guess the mansion portrays how eccentric Michael Parks is. I guess the convenience store looks like a convenience store. The podcast studio looks like a podcast studio. Yeah, they get it to look the way they mean for it to look. But when you get to the makeup and all that, the walrus costume, like you were saying, is clearly so just like a light rubber shell around Justin Long. Yeah, that is so poorly made and poorly put together. It looks so fake, obviously. And we know it's a stupid movie. We know it's a joke. But my God, like, what are you doing? Why are you slapping us in the face with this? Yeah, like it's not fun. It's not fun in any way. No, it's kind of gross looking. Yeah, but it's not realistic gross looking. It's like something you'd see in like Spirit of Halloween store. Like, it's not good. Yeah, you have like a face on like one of the sides of it. Why would he put that? Why would Michael? Did he just run out of like human skin to put on the suit?
Well, that's the thing. Even by his own character's like declaration about
he's got like 20-something people, right?
How much skill and time and all this that he's put in. It's like, why are you being lazy then? Yeah, like there's no continuity there. Yeah, like
it's dumb, but then you get to I think Johnny Depp's character had like the most effort put into him makeup wise, because for the most part Johnny Depp is like kind of unrecognizable. Yeah, like with makeup, with his teeth, if
you're not super familiar with Johnny Depp, you could do a double take. You could just not realize that it was him because there's like a prosthetic nose, I think, and some like heavier makeup and stuff like that. Really heavy mustache, not mustache, really heavy eyebrows and stuff. They've done a lot to kind of disguise him a little bit, but it's also very clearly him.
Yeah,
if you know who he is.
Him, but like his acting in it too, like also lends to that very well because like he doesn't sound at all like Johnny Depp, of course, and he's talking with this like reverent dialogue that no one would expect Johnny Depp to talk with.
Yeah, and with like an indistinguishable accent too.
Yeah,
that's supposed to be just a mix of everything, so you can't really tell where he's supposed to be from.
Because like clearly it sounds like French Canadian, but also a little bit of like Minnesotan and like someone from like the Midwest. Like it's that's a little funny. I thought that was like okay, funny accent.
Yeah.
I'm a simple man. I like the simple jokes.
And that's the thing. The first time I saw this movie, when I got to the Johnny Depp part, I'm like, okay, this is where the movie is going to redeem itself. The first half sucks, like hard.
Oh, yeah.
But like then Johnny Depp comes in and he's going to figure it out and they're going to fix it. I was fully thinking like by the end of the movie, Johnny Depp was going to kind of like do his like bumbling detective thing into the lair, and they were going to find him and they were going to cut him out of this suit. And there would be kind of like a tag scene where you'd see Justin Long maybe with some scars and stuff, but also like recovering in a hospital, you know? And I was like, okay, this is going to go down that generic kind of like saving the tortured hero route and it'll be fine. And then it didn't. It didn't at all.
Yeah, like it's not... if they used him better, they could have done so much better with it. But then they wanted to stick with like the original stupid ending that they came up with and all that. It feels like they didn't try and make it like any better. They're just like, good enough.
Yeah.
This is a movie. I'm a movie man. Haha. Walrus. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you stuck with Johnny Depp and his fun design and all that, even though I do think once he got to the moment where he did meet Howard Howe the first time, I thought that that ruined a lot of his character for me because that entire scene felt so mean-spirited and like just borderline offensive. How they like had Michael Parks acting in that part, and like a as Johnny Depp referred to him as a simpleton.
Yeah,
it was like where the hell did that come from? That's so dumb.
Yeah. And again, that had so much potential. They're two like very prolific and very clearly talented individuals, kind of like chewing the scenery together, and it's like that should have been the best scene in the movie, and instead it just kind of came off as like a little bit sour.
No, you want to move on to marketing?
Yeah. So next is marketing. In Wapmaster, many movies give away too much or not enough, use poor music choices, or just don't do enough marketing to get people excited. I gave this one a 7 as well, because I feel like while I don't necessarily like the marketing, you know exactly what you're in for. It's like you were saying earlier, as far as the marketing goes, it portrayed this movie exactly how they wanted you to portray it.
Yeah. You
knew exactly what you were in for, and if you watched it, that's on you.
Yeah. I think that's kind of... I gave it a 2, because, like, I know what I'm going in for, but I don't like what I'm going in for. I know I'm not going to like it. Yeah. I thought the poster was kind of cool. I thought, like, that's a little cool. I think some of the artwork is a little interesting, for sure. But when I watched the trailer, I was like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
You know, and they give away everything, so you know what's going to happen. There's nothing... They don't give away Johnny Depp's character, I think, and that's it.
Yeah.
And, like... And
if I remember right, they don't even give him credit, like, in the credits or anything. No, he's supposed to be, like, a fun cameo.
Yeah. And, like, he's way more than a cameo in this, that's for sure. Yeah. But, like, you know,
Which,
like,
just
fine.
I guess is a fun note. The two girls that run the convenience store.
Yeah, Kevin Smith and Johnny Depp's daughter.
Yeah, both of their daughters play, like, convenience store clerks.
And then they get their own movie in
Yoga Hosers.
Yoga Hosers?
Yeah.
Stupid movie.
They end up getting their own entirely separate movie, but with continuity. It's in the same universe. They play those same convenience store clerks.
Yeah. I haven't seen it. I don't plan on it. Unless we happen to watch it for this, I plan on never watching that stupid movie about Nazi sausages. Unless
we do this again, where we talk about, like, the worst movies, I don't think that's ever going to come up.
And how often are you going to put Kevin Smith movies on blast?
Every time we have the worst movies.
Oh, man. We might have to make this a regular series. But, yeah, no, I gave it a 2 because, like, you know, it didn't make me excited. That's for sure. Then the only reason it went up by 1 point from a 1 is because I kind of like the artwork a little bit. Okay. And that's it. But,
next is A for audio. This category covers orchestration and song choices, whether they enhance or elevate the film. I gave it a 3. I think all of the stuff was forgettable. There were 1 or 2 signature moments where Michael Parks is listening to super standard, like generic, fancy person orchestral music, and that's fine, but none of it's good. It's just all passable for the dumb movie that it's in. So.
I gave it a 4.
Okay.
Because yeah, it's forgettable. There's not noticeably bad ADR or anything like that that I noticed. But like I do think some of the song choices are like weird, and I think especially the songs towards the end I thought were like odd choices and maybe a little bit generic, but the one that did get me like at least feeling something was when Justin Long was driving to Michael Parks' house, and it had that like kind of like intense music that might have sounded a little bit stock music-ish, but it still worked for the scene, and I thought the editing in that scene was pretty all right, and that kind of was like, oh, it's kind of like getting you on edge a little bit because like you know what's coming.
Yeah.
So I thought that was like at least a little effective, and yeah, so that brought it up to a 4. I guess, but yeah.
Next is S for shooting, the cinematographer's job. Is it eye-catching? Do they have a unique color palette? Is there a reason they use it to enhance the movie? And does the camera work enhance the scenes or make them unique? I also gave this a 3, more or less for the same reasons you were just saying. Every once in a while there is something, you know, the way it's cut with him like driving to the mansion. Some of the visuals are fine, but there weren't enough of those. They were few enough and far between that I couldn't rate it any higher.
Yeah. When I at first I thought it was like, you know, a little bit better like than what I was expecting, because like it's got the color palette is fine. It's moody horror, you know, what you would expect.
Yeah.
Kind of brutish, but then like, and you know, some of the exterior shots and all that are fine. You don't get anything like super unique visually. I think the most unique shot that we got was from when what's his name is Michael Parks is looking through the porthole in the door.
Yeah.
And he's looking at Justin Long as like Walrus Long. And I thought that was like maybe the most unique shot. But the one thing I noticed, and this is what I was alluding to earlier with moving cameras, they really wanted to show off that they had a freaking dolly, because every time there was a shot, it was either going in or going out, or like moving around the side or something like that. It was so annoying. I was so
it was
why you don't need that. Certain scenes I can understand that to like underline some sort of like intensity or something like that. It didn't need it here, not at all. It was very, very pointless, and has something to do with editing that we'll bring up in a little bit. But like, it made me very frustrated, so I gave it a 2.
Yeah,
like I just, you know, occasional all right shots, lighting was fine, but God, that movement was so annoying.
Yeah. So next is D for directing, one of the most important elements of the movie. The director makes sure the movie comes together. Is it effective at conveying a tone, message, or visual that the director intended? Can you identify them by their good or bad habits while filmmaking? I gave this just a 1 as well. I think the directing was exactly what Kevin Smith wanted it to be, and I hated it. I hated every part of it.
Yeah.
It was, because even, like I said, there's, in the credits, it talks about, they have a clip from the podcast of him talking about his vision for the movie, and I didn't like the podcast vision that he was talking about, and it was almost identical to what you actually got. And I didn't like it in practice either. Yeah.
I think that his vision, he clearly put his vision on screen. And I gotta give him some sort of props for that. But boy, was it a bad vision.
Yeah.
Boy, was it stupid. And no one was like, hey, Kevin, maybe don't.
Yeah.
And like, and that shows. I give it a 3 though. And that's mainly because of the acting. And I think this is also to do with just having like great veteran actors a lot like in his film. And I don't think at all it's much of him, but I feel like it does elevate him a little bit in that sense. At least up by 2 points.
Yeah.
Because like, and also because like, you know, clearly it's the vision that he wanted, whether it's good or bad. It's, you know, that's it. He got it on screen. But yeah, like he's frustrating, and like it clearly I've heard in interviews that he's not much of a actor's director. He does not really direct the actors much at all.
Yeah.
And that shows. And he's lucky that he got this good of a cast.
Yeah,
because if he didn't, then oh boy, it would have been way worse.
Yeah, it's very clearly to the actor's credits and not to him.
You know, like cool. I cannot talk highly enough about all these like actors. Even Justin Long, who is like the most middle of the road 5 out of 10 person on earth.
Yeah.
Boy, is he in a sense, for Justin Long standards, a tour de force. You know,
I always get him mixed up with the guy from iCarly.
What? Spencer?
Yeah.
What's his name? Oh,
I don't remember the actor's
Jerry
name.
Trainer.
Jerry
Jerry Trainer.
Jerry Trainer. But the two of them, I feel like they're like the same person in my head. I feel like Jerry Trainer is more fun, but like physically, I feel like they just have a similar look.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. Except Justin Long gives me a very short vibe, and Jerry Trainer is pretty tall.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, directing 3.
Next,
not good.
Next is E for editing. Does the movie have a visual rhythm? Does it flow well? Does it keep the viewer engaged? Does it scrub bad performances? Again, that's the key word there. I gave that a 1. Again, I think primarily for the walrus suit. That's just it was very lazy. It was all very shoddy. There's no reason that they should have left in these shots of like the suit not working the way it should have, or that's primarily it.
Yeah.
Because I mean a significant portion of the movie is Justin Long in a walrus suit, and when the walrus suit doesn't look right,
when you put it like that,
right,
when you say Justin Long in a walrus suit, this is something that like I feel like I would want to see.
Yeah, that makes it sound better than it is.
As like a clip, or as like something, as like a skit, not as like a full movie, especially one that's like that takes itself as a joke, but in a way it feels like it's taking itself way more seriously than it should be. And
also not in like a grotesque suit like this. I feel like what I would want to see is him actually in just like a walrus suit.
Yeah.
And it'd be like a goofy thing.
Yeah. But nah, Kevin Smith wanted to Kevin Smith it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I gave this a 4 because I felt like for the most part, for the majority of the film, it was at least competent. It was like yeah, cut, shot, reverse shot, you know, getting continuity for the most part and all these things. The things that bothered me were as I was alluding to earlier with the moving camera, you have shots where it's Justin Long walking into the room to meet Michael Parks for the first time. It's zooming in on Justin Long, and then it'll cut to reverse shot on Michael Parks. It's zooming out on Michael Parks. It's like, that's disorienting. Why would you want that in a film?
Yeah. And
also like with the sliding with the dolly, it'll be it'll be going left, going right for Justin Long, and then you cut to Michael Parks and it's going left. What? Why? Yeah. It's like I don't know if like he intended on doing that to make it even more dumb, but like it whatever it is, it succeeded because like boy was that stupid. Yeah. But that's bad editing. And then like you were saying with the how they didn't cut around the clear mistakes in the walrus suit or in just like, you know, small moments with Michael Parks and Justin Long doing, you know, their dumb walrus things. Yeah. Like it's clearly it would be so easy to cut around that and be like, hey, Justin Long, let's get another take where we don't have yourself turning in like enveloping and I don't know the word you use for it, but like, you know, folding in on the walrus suit. Yeah. Let's try and do that again. It would have been so easy, and they have other takes that they probably could use that would be just fine, but they chose this one. And I don't know if it's on purpose. Yeah. But it does not lend well. Ugh, it's bad. Yeah. And maybe I guess I could have given editing a little bit more credit. I really didn't want to. I'm being harsher on this film just because of my own bias toward it. Yeah. But yeah. And finally, R for reflection. It's simply a gauge of how much we enjoyed the film because of or despite the rankings we gave in other categories. I don't think it's any surprise that I also gave this a 1 because I had to give it a number. Yeah. I gave it a 2, and that's because of the acting. I thought the acting was definitely the best part, and I love these actors, and I hate everything else. So there you go. It's a 2. Stupid movie. Don't watch it. Yeah. Just don't. Do yourself a favor. Do us a favor. Just don't. Just don't watch it. And my final Wapmaster score for Tusk ended up being a 26. Wow. Mine ended up being a 33. Not a good movie. It's very dumb. No. Don't watch this movie.
And with that said, we will move into another very dumb movie.
Oh,
The Year of Spectacular Men, which is your recommended least favorite movie.
boy. All right, let me give a little bit of backstory here. So I went through a phase in I think 2018 where I really wanted to watch indie rom-coms for some reason, and I was going on the Hulu indie movie section, and I saw this cover for Year of Spectacular Men. I'm gonna put it on screen while I'm editing. Remember that. And I was like, oh man, this looks like exactly indie rom-com-ish, exactly what you'd expect. I should know what I'm going in for, and it should be like, you know, not great, but not the worst thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, was I wrong. Boy, did they send me for a ride.
Yeah, it was actually the worst thing ever.
A stupid amount of times. I have seen it so many times, but it's purely because I'm so amazed at how bad it is that I want to show other people. Me and my friend Logan have taken whiteboards and watched this movie and try and devise a timeline to like figure out how this, like the structure of this film and how things take place. And they literally have different segments where they break off and show like, oh, this is July, this is August, this is September,
Yeah.
and all that throughout the year. And you still don't get a clear timeline of what's happening in the film.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. It's like they took a bunch of monkeys and they put them in a room with like an old style typewriter, and they gave them a bunch of like bananas laced with LSD, and they like they started playing like a bunch of rom-coms like Sleepless in Seattle and shit on TV, and they're like, all right, write that.
And all of the monkeys were named Madeline Dutch.
And all of them named Madeline Dutch. Boy, oh man. I'm kind of excited to talk about this. Because like I've shown a few people this movie. But to show, like, be able to get it out there to like a wider audience would feel so much better. I know we don't have the craziest audience, but just to have it out there for people to be able to see, and maybe Madeline Dutch so that she can know you need to work on it a little bit and workshop a few things. Yeah, it'll feel so much better. I don't mean to be mean. I really don't. But God.
It's bad.
It's bad. You want to start us off?
So first off on the list, we have writing. For writing, I gave it a 1.
Right,
that's all I have to say.
Yeah,
there's nothing.
No,
there's nothing I can say to really justify just how awful this like what pseudo hipster dialogue is, where she's trying to make it like the way young cool people talk, and none of it is actually the way that anyone does or should talk.
Yeah,
it's all just bad.
It's very much she saw 500 Days of Summer and she was like, oh man, what a cool character Summer is. Mm-hmm. She's so quirky. She's so different. I'm like that. I can do that. I'm different. I'm gonna write this movie from my perspective and be quirky and different,
and not hire anyone else to do it. I'm gonna play that character that I'm writing because I'm just like Zooey Deschanel.
Oh my God, she had her hands in like all these different. She had so many spoons and different soups and stuff making this movie. This is all clearly her baby. This is Madeline Dutch's baby. Yeah, and it shows because it is so self-centered with the writing. Mm-hmm. I also gave it a 1. Not surprising whatsoever, is it? Because let me read some quotes.
Yeah, just a few of our best lines from this movie.
Okay, so this is supposed to be like a deep line from this is from Madeline Dutch herself. She wrote this for her own character. Okay, Izzy Klein, which is her character in this. It's up to me to look at endings like they could actually potentially be happy things. Shut up. Okay, let's go to a funny line. This is the line. We were standing around trying to figure out what this meant because we did not understand it. It is from her sister, played by Zoe Dutch. Come on, sister. Full House Street never lost its creep, and I'm RDY to Space Jam. Let's go. What?
I can't say anything more about it. It speaks for itself.
It's so bad. Despite whatever Jedi mind garbage I told you, scoffs. Before you left, I actually waited for you for 3 months because I like you a lot. Logan couldn't figure out how to react. Izzy Klein, it just sucks. Leaves. I don't know why they put this in the quotes. That's a terrible quote.
And for some context, that line was spoken after she gives the guy express permission to just kind of like sleep around while he's off in other cities and stuff.
Yeah.
She's like playing it. And again, it's like that totally like cool hipster, like, you know, we're not exclusive. If you want to do whatever you want to do while we're gone, just do it. Like, that's fine. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And she's like, no, seriously. Like, I don't care. Yeah, and then he comes back and he's like, so I might have like made out with this one girl and stuff. And she's like, excuse me?
It's like she's the most non-character because she was exactly what you would expect. Like she's one of those girls. She's like, oh, she's so different. She's not like other girls. She woke up next to this dude after smoking weed, which the way they handle weed in this, it's so quick, but it makes no sense.
Yeah,
like she ends up cuddling with the Joker from Gotham. And the
actor.
Yeah, the actor.
This isn't like a weird plot point.
But she cuddles with him and wakes up and she's like, I gotta go. Oh no. And then she finds a Cheeto in her hair and she's like, and eats the Cheeto. And it's like, oh, so quirky. Yeah. She ate the Cheeto that was in her hair. Oh, so weird. She has a bag of M&Ms in her class and she spills it. This movie has like all its plot points are so underdefined. It starts off with her in college getting a non-specified degree. She has an acting class, which is the only one we see her doing, and she goes to it and she's about to fail, and then she like blackmails the professor into like passing her, and she graduates, and that's it had nothing. It had no real meaning behind it. No necessary thing other than to like have her meet the Joker guy, which could have been done so many different ways.
And again, we need to emphasize the fact that this is our hero. This is the person we follow that we're supposed to be rooting for. That is, walking out on her boyfriends who have just done what she said and is blackmailing her own college professor, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Nothing redeeming about her. No reason you would want her to succeed or have happiness, but we're supposed to because she's the main person.
This is all about the writing too. We haven't moved on to any other topic yet. This is about writing.
Yeah.
Can you find any clear defined character arc in this for anyone?
Well, and I was gonna. So, I mean, we do it sometimes over here, but one thing that's like really prominent in like Japanese media is like slice of life style like comedies and writing, like romances and things like that. Which is all fine and well and good. They've never been my cup of tea, like in all the manga I read and stuff like that. That's one of those genres that I've always just kind of stayed away from.
Yeah.
But this feels like that, but in the worst possible way. It feels like a little portion of her life, but without anything to make us want to read that part of her life.
Yeah.
There's nothing redeeming. There's no character growth. There's nothing to show us that like this is something we should be a part of. Mm-hmm. It just exists.
Yeah, it exists. She has no character. She's unlikable because all she's mooching off of her famous sister and her sister's boyfriend because she's like, like I gotta find myself. Mm-hmm. Kind of. It's literally I gotta find myself with a girl in her 20s.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Wait, hold on. The description of this is hilarious. I want to get to that. So it's like, oh my god, Izzy Klein, story of Izzy Klein, a young woman fresh out of college, as she strikes up and ruins relationships with several men and struggles to navigate the failures of post-college adulthood, leaning on her mother and older sister for support. Yeah. What substance is that? That's like the entire movie. You don't learn anything about these characters. They don't grow in any way. They stay the exact same. Mm-hmm. And oh my god, the writing for the ending scene, one of the plot points is that her dad committed suicide, but they don't want to bring it up to her little sister because she was 15 and they didn't want to tell her. Mm-hmm. Which, like, 15, I know it's a very heavy topic, but 15 seems like an okay time to like where you can process that at least to an extent.
Yeah.
And maybe like tell her like at least a little bit later because she's in her 20s now.
Yeah.
But for some reason they keep it hidden the entire time. And the way that she tells her, because like this is like an underlying plot point in the entire film, but which is like brought up out of nowhere, and for no reason too. And the way she tells her is through like a poem, and she's like reading a poem out to her sister who's sad because her boyfriend cheated on her, and she's like at the end of the poem she's like, because they had been telling her entire life that their dad died in a car accident. At the end of the poem, which is selfishly about Izzy and not even about her sister the entire time. Yeah. She's reading her sister who's crying over her cheating boyfriend a poem about herself. And at the end she's like, there was no car accident. And then the scene just like, it shows like Zoe Dutch's face, and then it just cuts, and they go to a scene where they're sitting like laying on the San Francisco sidewalks, which are disgusting by the way. And she's like, so dad killed himself. And that's like,
and that's supposed to be
it.
And that's like, that was supposed to be like one of the important like subplots of the film, is that Zoe Dutch's character doesn't like germs and things, and so the fact that she's laying out on the sidewalk with her sister is supposed to be like a big deal.
But like, no, it doesn't. First off, I didn't even remember that she didn't like germs. That's how like underdeveloped these characters are. It's so forgettable. But we've talked about writing so much. I'm so sorry. Let's move on. Like, it's
oh, one more thing. Just one quick note about the writing. Normally, I'm okay whenever they like use the title of the movie. And you know, and it's like you have that moment where it's like, oh, they said it. Yeah. And in here, I hated the movie so much where she's basically just sleeping around and moving on and never learns anything about why that's not a good thing. And then at the end, Zoe Dutch's character is like, it really was your year of spectacular men. And I was like, are you serious?
And they shoehorned it in at the last second too. They made it like, wow.
I was so mad.
And you could tell when Madeline Dutch wrote that line, she was like, oh man, this is a great line. Yep. They're gonna love this. They're gonna stick my script on the fridge. They're gonna be so happy with this. It is so bad.
Which it's all a family vanity project anyway.
Oh my god.
They might have actually stuck it up on their fridge.
Yeah, the two leads in this film are Madeline Dutch and Zoe Dutch.
They're sisters.
Their mother is Leah Thompson, who directed the film, which we'll get to her.
And also stars in it.
And also stars
as their mother.
Oh my god, who shouldn't have done anything since the 80s.
Yeah.
And then their father is the producer of 80s classics like Pretty in Pink, produced this film. So it's an entire family affair, and you can tell no one wanted to tell the family, hey, maybe you should do something about this. Yeah. There's a few problems in this. So they just like made it clear out. It felt like first draft script. Yeah. They went straight for it. And oh man, did it come out as some work of art.
But with all that said, moving on to Heart, I gave it a 1. Again, I don't have we've talked an awful lot about this movie already and how we felt about it. There's nothing to learn. No. Nothing to make you feel better, nothing to inspire you, nothing that the characters teach you. Yeah. There's no heart to it.
Yeah. I gave it a 2, and that's because Madeline Dutch clearly wrote this movie for herself. And so she put a little bit of herself in it, and that's as much as I can say about it. That is it. I'm trying to be generous. I really am. I feel like I should have given it a 1, but I gave it a 2. There we go.
Moving on. Acting. I gave it a 3, and I wrote the WAP Master. This is my ratings board, and I thought about just breaking the rules and giving it a 0. But the 3 points I did give it, I am giving all to Zoe Dutch. And that's it. Yeah. She was at least a competent actress in a sea of garbage.
Yeah. I gave it a 3 as well, actually. And funny that you said that you were gonna break your rules and give it a 0. I wrote as a little note, like if I could, I'd give it negative points. But I gave it a 3 for Zoe Dutch and Jason Avant, who was like, he was playing his character from Victorious. Let's be real. Yeah, that's who he was playing, and it was fine. Those two were fine. They weren't anything spectacular, but they clearly, like they were clearly doing this for Madeline, and that's like Zoe Dutch clearly cares about her family. Yeah, because if she didn't, she wouldn't have started this awful, terrible, stupid movie.
No, there are a couple of times where, like when you're at like a high school like play or something, and you have like one or two kids who are okay at what they're doing, and everyone else is
high school level.
Yeah, that's kind of how it felt. Except they didn't give the parts that needed to be good to the good actors and actresses.
Doesn't that feel so selfish too?
Like,
that feels so selfish.
Madeline Dutch, she has moments where clearly she's like missing her beats, where she'll like one of her like boys at the time will be saying something that's supposed to make her mad, and she'll clearly miss like her beat, and she'll like throw her hands up all exasperated, and then realize that the guy is still talking, and she'll just like stand there with her hands in the air, like with a disgusted look on her face, waiting for him to finish his line so that she can continue with what she's saying and pretend to be mad about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so like, it's all just so badly done, except Zoe Dutch, who's so underutilized.
Yeah. And when she is utilized, it's in the most like side character sister kind of way.
Yeah.
And like Madeline Dutch, when she's in there, she's supposed to be having actual arguments with her boyfriend, especially in the beginning. And he's making points, being like, you do this, you do that. And she's just like, I made salad twice, actually. Like, okay, like what kind of comedy are you trying to get across here? What kind of, your performance doesn't give us any sense of like reality or that you're an actual person. It makes us feel like you're a cartoon and you're trying to play up that cartoon feeling, and that makes you more unlikable than anything, really.
Yeah.
Do you want to see the dogs room?
I think they're okay.
Okay.
As long as I think it'll cut it out fine. That's not too loud.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure.
But no, I think they just want in.
Okay.
My guess is maybe it started sprinkling or something, or they just hear us in here talking.
Oh, probably. We're almost done too. So.
Yeah, no, at this point I'm just gonna let them whine for a little bit longer. So next is P, production design. This was one of my more generous ones, just because, it's fine. I gave it a 4. I didn't go middle of the road. I went a little bit less than middle of the road. But it's all just kind of a modern tale, and they all just wear modern people like clothes that humans wear.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason to really give it a 1, but at the same time, there's no reason to rank it high either. It's like, the cool like musical theater guy is wearing a sweater with a collar because he's supposed to be kind of like that guy.
Yeah.
And the Zoe Dutch's character dresses a little bit like more fancy and pink because she's supposed to be like an Instagram influencer or whatever, and like she's a little bit of an actress.
Yeah.
But she like a heavy plot, or not a heavy plot point, but I feel like a heavy thing in the movie is that she's like always doing stuff on her phone, like recording and taking pictures and stuff, and so on and so forth. And it's all okay. Yeah. They live in a human world like the rest of us. Yeah. They wear clothes.
Yeah. It's funny because like the more we go down, the more I think about moments from the writing that I want to be mad at. So I'm gonna bring up just like 2 really quick things. At the very beginning, they're doing like quick interview segments, which we're gonna talk about more in the editing.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Oh my god. With the boyfriends, and one of them says she's kind of sexy in a short bus kind of way. That line always stuck with me.
Yeah, not only like bad writing, but like offensive writing, and for no
disgusting
reason. Yeah,
like what? You could tell Madeline was like, "Oh, this is gonna be so funny and edgy, and the people that are like have a little edge to them are gonna love this." No, like I love Darren Aronofsky movies because they're edgy and they make me feel like a piece of shit. This makes me feel like Madeline Dutch is a piece of shit. Like it doesn't do any good. And then another one is Madeline when they find out that Jason Avant cheated on what's her name's girlfriend, the mom's girlfriend, and she's like, and they're arguing and all that, and then Madeline is just like, like making jokes and everything. Yeah. Just what? Like, why are you making jokes in the middle of this serious moment? It broke up the pacing. It made everything feel so like, so not real. Yeah. Like it had, and not only because the performances were awful in that moment, but also because like dumb writing and dumb acting by Madeline Dutch. You're not doing good, Madeline. You could do better.
Yeah.
But okay, production design, I gave it a 2 because they made San Francisco feel empty. There's like barely any actual people on there. You get like very few scenes where there's extras.
Yeah.
And that makes it feel empty as well. Most of it feels like it's relying a lot on the scenery, which that can work very well in film. But here it feels like a cheap cop out.
Yeah.
Her sister and her boyfriend are famous actors, and they live in like a weird loft house that it seems like they rent in LA, which I mean I feel like their combined income they could easily afford a better house that they would probably have. Yeah, no, it feels lazy. It feels extremely lazy. New York feels empty too. How do you make New York feel empty?
By the way they did it.
Good point.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
They did it effectively.
That's for sure.
Yeah, if that's what you want. If you want to show like some weird dystopian New York that's devoid of people, you can take lessons from this movie.
There you go. Yeah, perfect. So, yeah. That and 28 Days Later.
Yeah. Next is, I want to see a mashup of those movies.
Man. Both make you feel terrible.
Yeah.
Different reasons.
Next up is marketing. For marketing, I also gave it a 1. I didn't even realize it existed. It's what, like 4 or 5 years old? It's not even like an old movie.
4 years old at this point.
I didn't realize it existed until you told me about it. And then I looked at it. Everything about it is... The stuff I did see as far as marketing, like the posters and things, were really generic and not great. And obviously the marketing was not good enough back when it came out for me to even get it on my radar.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly what you said. Trailer is... I wish I watched the trailer before watching the movie, because then I might have been able to save myself from knowing this movie. And the poster, like I was saying earlier, looks exactly what you would think this stupid thing would look like. It says on the top, a Leah Thompson film. No one's gonna go to this movie being like, oh my god, Leah Thompson. No
she was in Back to the Future. It's gonna be great.
No one's been excited since 1989 about Leah Thompson being in things. All right, like, and even then I don't think anyone's been excited for it, so I gave it a 1. This is notable. I don't care that you know this. The rest of my scores on this are 1s. It clear down the board. I was like, this. I can't give it any higher. Like, it's bad. So let's move on to that, I guess.
So next up is audio, the music and orchestration and sound design. I gave that a 1. It's we were talking about dissonance in Tusk. The dissonance in the music in this movie just drove me nuts. Like, from scene to scene, you were talking about kind of like the disorienting camera work in Tusk. For here, that's what it felt like with the music. It would be like, it would go, they'd supposed to be in a bar, and it's not even like good bar music. It's still kind of like an indie pop song or something for some reason. But, you know, in like this crowded bar, and it's like, that wouldn't happen in a real bar.
No.
But then the scene would shift, but there would be no break. It would be like the scene would shift, and there would immediately be like an actual like orchestral song playing in the background instead. Yeah. And the tonal dissonance there of just like the way the music does not, like, it doesn't serve its purpose in the scene, but it also doesn't serve its purpose like going from scene to scene. It's very jarring and very bad all the way through.
Yeah. It's also important to acknowledge that Madeline Deutsch, whatever it is.
Madeline Deutsch
also composed the original score.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
That explains a lot, actually.
I know, doesn't it? So that makes sense as to why it's so cheap feeling.
Yeah.
And so unflinchingly generic in a way. It feels like she had GarageBand and she was like, I'm gonna put some hi-hats. Like, it is so bad. And then like the generic pop music they put in, like you were saying, doesn't fit. They do like the motif where it'll be like a passage of time scene where like, oh, you got like all these quirky funny moments going on, and then there's like this generic music playing in the background that's like supposed to keep like the upbeat feel and tone of it.
Yeah.
And it's just frustrating because it's not good music. At least, like, not for me. Like, it wouldn't be for me. I don't know. But it doesn't work for the film either because it makes it feel that much more generic. And also, like you were saying with the jarring cuts, like, they will go from, like, one of those montages where it's feels like a long extended music video, and they'll go to a quick scene where she's like auditioning for a movie that lasts all of like 2 minutes, and they'll go to another long like, music video-esque scene.
Yeah.
Why? I guess that has to do with editing again, which we'll get to, but it's so oddly put together, and such weird moments to place these scores and soundtracks. I don't understand how they cut this and we're like, man,
that'll work.
That's a movie.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's it.
Next is shooting. The cinematography, I was, I guess, a little bit nicer. I gave it a 3 instead of a 1.
Yeah.
I tried to give a little bit of credit for the scenes that at least weren't outright bad, that were just kind of, mediocre. But yeah, most of the cinematography is bad as well.
Yeah, I gave it a 1. It felt so uninspired. It felt like it had nothing unique, nothing interesting to go with. Shot wise, you can tell when you have a director that wants these specific shots and done in a certain way. You're like, oh, let's get a tracking shot here. Oh, let's like shoot through this unique little setting so that we can like get this from like a weird kind of dirty angle to get it at, where things are like dirtying up the frame and all that. It makes it more visually interesting and stimulating to watch and look at. Leah Thompson had none of those. She's just like, I'm gonna put the camera on my daughter, and I'm gonna put the camera on who she's talking to, and we're gonna go back and forth. And that's it. They don't do anything. That's
probably exactly how she said it too, with like that Minnesota accent.
Yeah, like you get nothing interesting to look at. It's so flat and boring. I don't know, man. How do you have all these locations and yet you find nothing interesting to put in frame?
Yeah,
except for your boring daughters. Yeah, I'm sorry, but oh my god. Let's move on.
Next is directing. I gave that a 1.
Yep. That's exactly what I was talking about.
It's like you were just saying. Yeah. It's all uninspired, all flat, nothing to gain from this movie, nothing insightful, nothing motivated.
I feel like Leah Thompson is a prolifically bad director, specifically for this film. Because not only do you not pull any actual performances out of people who are your daughters, who you should be able to like actually communicate with and be able to get some real emotion out of. You've known them their entire lives. They know you. You should be able to like touch those actual emotional moments. Yet, whether it be through the bad writing, through their own lack of talent acting wise, which I don't think Zoe Dutch is lacking in a ton of talent. I think that she can do well. Yeah, Madeline for sure is lacking, and yet you still can't pull that out of them. That's sad. That's really, it feels like you didn't put any effort into actually making these characters, into fleshing them out, into giving us anything visually interesting or stimulating, into having this final cut that is at least coherent in the sense of a timeline or in any real like thematic way. We have no coherence and no real story to behold in this entire film, and Leah Thompson is a strong primary contributor to that. She gives us also Leah Thompson acting in this. The most seasoned actor in this film is maybe the worst actor besides Madeline Dutch. I don't know because they're both very awful. Madeline Dutch might be worse because she gets more screen time, but when Leah Thompson is in it, she is, my god, she is bad. It's sad to see. And she's very bad directing wise. It feels
like, it doesn't feel like an actress that happens to be a different actress's mother in the same movie. It feels like, a bad actress legitly just brought in her mom. It doesn't feel like Leah Thompson has ever acted before. It feels like she like called up her stay-at-home mom and was like, hey, I need someone to play my mom and you're my actual mom. So
there's a scene. It's the scene I was talking about before where Madeline Dutch kind of ruined it with like her kind of jokey moments where it's supposed to be a serious scene where we find out that Jason Avant is cheating with his maybe soon to be stepmom at some point, Leah Thompson's partner, significant other, and I don't know if it's ruined because of Madeline Dutch's terrible writing and how and her also terrible acting and how she throws in these jokes in the middle of this like serious scene. But then when Leah Thompson comes in and is like supposed to be like blowing up, she's like, everyone just needs to get their shit together. It came off like a Rick and Morty episode. It came off as like joking. Like
Yeah.
it didn't feel real, and like it had like it was maybe the funniest part that she had in this entire film, and clearly not intentional. And that leads again to the writing and to the acting, like very poorly done, and also in directing wise, she couldn't even direct herself to give a good performance. My God.
Next, are you okay with me moving on?
Yes, yeah, very
Next
much so.
is editing. Guess what I gave that?
Was it a 1?
It was a 1. Again, just because everything was jarring and didn't make sense.
Yeah.
I hated how it jumped from a scene that didn't feel like it was over to a montage to another scene that didn't feel like it should be starting yet. Like it was just all cut together so badly.
It feels like none of the scenes had any real substance to them.
Yeah.
This is also a 1 for me. And we cut between many months in the film, and they have this motif of a because she has a notebook in the film, which you forget about like immediately. She's like writing it in the beginning, she's writing it throughout, but then they don't bring it up very often, so you just constantly forget that it's there. And they have this motif of like a hand-drawn, written thing that has like the months on them and everything. And Tyler brought this up when we were talking about before, how like a lot of it looks like it's grainy and poorly composed into the shots.
And I don't understand why they would do that. Like it would be so easy to like sharpen it up, like just bump up the resolution a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's not hard at all.
I think I phrased it as it looks like they took the thumbnail from a DeviantArt page.
Yeah.
And then when they blew it up, they realized it was grainy and they were like, oh well.
Ah, darn. Well, that's fine. Yeah, like it feels it's lazy, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And that motif is when they're putting it through, you're supposed to feel like months have passed. They're going through months. It does not. It feels like this is all taking place on the same day. It like you don't get any sense of time throughout the entire film. That's what I was talking about before. We're trying to figure out a timeline, which is
why they had to have those timestamps on it. Because without those timestamps, I think the audience would have just assumed that this was she had met and slept with like 7 different guys over the course over the course of like 3 or 4 days, and this was all just taking place over the course of like a long weekend or something. You have to have this, and that's where like the lazy writing and the lazy editing and all that comes in. The fact that you shouldn't have to have those timestamps at all. If the movie were better, you could see that time was passing. But instead, they had to have these lazy, like grainy timestamps to show that, oh, this is supposed to be like a month or 2 later, and she spent some time with this guy instead of dropping him like a hot potato.
Yeah, it's so consistently inconsistent.
Yeah.
And maybe that's like the most consistent thing you can talk about in this film is the inconsistency or the bad acting. But, you know.
Or the bad writing.
Or the bad writing, or the bad everything. But, yeah, like you have those moments. You have the interview segments that pop up occasionally that you also forget happen until they pop up and you're like, whoa, that's right, an interview. Yeah. But there's no rhyme or reason for the interviews.
Nobody's interviewing them.
Yeah, no one's interviewing them. We have no need or meaning behind it. We don't know where they're coming from. They just show up. It's a big yawn.
That was adorable.
But yeah, like they're just there.
Yeah.
And they don't give us anything. They really don't lend to the character. You could take those out and the movie wouldn't change one bit. The editing might be a bit better if you took it out, actually.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they just needed a way to transition between scenes and they didn't know how to do it. So they threw in those moments.
Yeah.
And boy, does it end up jarring and confusing. Okay, you want to move on?
Yeah. No, I don't have anything better than that to say. Finally, we have R for reflection. You want to say it with me?
Yeah.
1.
Wait, what? I was gonna count down and all
10.
that. I was going to a split screen and everything. Dang, dude. All right, you ready? 3, 2, 1. 1. It sucks.
And that's don't have much more to say than that.
Yeah,
I hated it.
Yeah. I feel like I've been very self-conscious about like how I was talking to you about this a couple days ago about how I feel like I repeat myself a lot in these in the podcast, and like I feel like I'm not getting a whole lot of substance that we would usually get when we have our conversations where it's just, you know, us talking and not on camera, because I feel like I get like a little nervous or something.
Yeah.
But here I feel so ready and prepared to talk about this thing that I hate so much.
Yeah.
That like I'm actually getting a lot across. And yeah, so this one feels so earned and deserved for this film.
Yeah.
If they were trying to make an awful film, if this was a joke, like Kevin Smith was trying to make Tusk, then I feel like this would end up being like a 6.
Yeah.
Because like
it's so effective.
It's so effectively bad.
Yeah.
And like this entire movie is a meme around like me and my friends, like my friend group. It's just we all know it and we're all like, oh man, The Year of Spectacular Men, worst movie ever made. Like it's so consistently awful.
Yeah.
In every way possible. And I hate reading the reviews of it on Letterboxd or on IMDb because there's a lot of good ones. And they're like, oh man, what a marvelous film with all these great performances by this wonderful family. And I'm like, how? Like,
yeah.
Where do you get that from? So yeah, clearly I hate this film a lot.
It's probably more of their family members making the reviews.
Oh my god, yeah. It's just Madeline Dutch making out a ton of different accounts being like, I really liked the movie. I liked with the main girl when she ate the Cheeto out of her hair.
Adam Sandler really liked this movie.
Adam Sandler plays a young girl in her 20s going through a quarter-life crisis in The Year of Spectacular Men.
Adam Sandler is down to Space Jam in this new indie romantic comedy.
In the RDY. What a stupid movie. It's so bad. It's not even like a fun bad. It's a frustrating and annoying bad, but it's fun to talk about.
Yeah, we're laughing about it and stuff, but don't take that as us like laughing about the movie
like we did with Malignant.
Yeah. We're laughing about it now, but please do not do this to yourself.
Don't support this film, please. I think you can support the artist, but I think in ways of encouragement where and this is definitely not encouragement unless it's like, negative reinforcement where like, hey, this is awful, you need to work on it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I'm sorry if this is rude to you, Madeline Dutch, and your family, but this is a very awful film.
Yeah.
And you need to work on this desperately, or I don't understand how you can, I guess because your family is so ingrained in the culture and in the community that you will, no matter what, you will be able to make films.
Yeah.
But I'm very scared for your future of these films. Yeah, don't make them like this.
Yeah.
And please don't go out and like be rude to the people in the films, but just know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
Know that if you're going to watch this movie, it's awful. Same with Tusk. It's awful.
Yeah.
You shouldn't watch these films, and I don't think I want to support the artists and I want to support indie filmmaking. I love it. I think even if it's bad films, they should keep being made.
Yeah.
But is it hard for me to be like, yeah, go like buy this movie on Amazon. Go like give credit and support the people that made this, because it came out as nothing but egotistical nonsense in a way. And like it's borderline offensive to watch because of how bad and how poorly done it is. I hesitate to say watch this film and support the young people making these films. It's hard to say. It really is.
So with all that said, my final Wattmaster score for the Year of Spectacular Men ended up being a 17.
Mine ended up being a 14.
Okay.
I think these might be the lowest scores we will ever give doing the WAPs.
I don't think it's going to get worse than this. And ironically, The Year of Spectacular Men was rated much higher than Tusk on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, if I remember correctly.
It's a Tusk is a 5.3 on IMDb, and Year of Spectacular Men is a 5.7. But I think that contributes to.
Oh, I was thinking Year of Spectacular Men was like in the 6s.
No, thank God.
Okay, so it's not that bad.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
but I think I think that's because more people have seen Tusk, where it has 49,000 views, whereas Year of Spectacular Men has 1,400.
Yeah.
So that might have something to do with it. Well, probably, but I'm very happy to see that people acknowledge at least that these films are not
very good.
Not very good. They are art.
Yeah.
All film is art. But there's a difference between art with substance and art that is lacking substance.
Yeah.
And both these films are clearly lacking in both very weirdly egotistical contrived ways.
Yeah.
Like it oozes the ego of their filmmakers.
Yeah, they're very much like vanity projects. They made these movies because they said we can make these movies and you can't stop us.
Yeah, whereas there's people that probably have a voice and talent and something to say who are not able to make the films they want to make, or don't have the proper resources for it. Yet there's people like Kevin Smith, like Madeline Dutch and Lance Hobson,
Yeah.
who can go out and make a movie every other Tuesday and it wouldn't even bat an eye because people are just going to keep shilling out money for them to do it because they're a known name. And they're going to keep coming out with stuff like this. And it's not right. It really isn't.
Yeah. So with all that said, these are like we were saying, these are probably going to be the lowest scores we ever put out. Do you have any final thoughts before we move into our exits?
I don't think I do. We've talked so much about these films. Man, this is a passionate episode.
Yeah. Okay. So my question for the week for you, for next week, I want to know, because we watched The Year of Spectacular Men and we had so much to say about Madeline and Zoe Dutch and Leah Thompson, who are your top 10 favorite female actresses?
That's going to be fun.
And I figure from there we'll segue into actors. But I want to, for next week, I want to know...
That's going to be hard.
Favorite actresses. Top 10 favorite female.
Man.
And we're not going to get into any political things about that, you know, just as far as like gender identity and stuff like that.
Yeah. Like I'll put Elliot Page on male actors. I don't care.
Yeah. You do what feels right.
Yeah.
But yeah, female actresses for next week. And with that said, it might end up being 2 weeks. Next week, I have a birthday party that I'm organizing for my brother-in-law. You're going to be out of town with your girlfriend.
It's our anniversary.
Yay! Congratulations.
Thank you.
So if we have time to record, we will. But if not, it might be 2 weeks until we get another episode. But our next episode will be our top 10 favorite actresses and a WAP master on Dear Evan Hansen.
And Birds of Paradise.
Yes, Birds of Paradise. I forgot that one too. So we will have 2 more WAP masters. A little bit more disjointed this time, less connected.
Yeah.
And we'll have our 10 favorite actresses. But until then, whether it's next week or the week after, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Bye.